Chapter 2587, Usurping Power, How Dare You? Gong Sun-ji, watch your mouth. Xianzhan, who had remained calm the entire time, immediately became infuriated when he heard Gong Sun-ji's words. His bellow created a terrifying sound wave that made the entire sacred hall rumble. All the elders in the sacred hall were deafened by it as their souls shuddered. A dazzling light rose up from Gong Sun-ji. The power from the protector sword protected him. The protector swords that belonged to Han Xian, Biyao, Donglin Yanxue, and Xian Ming automatically responded as well. So powerful. Xianzhan is exceedingly close to Grand Prime. The 7 other vice leaders narrowed their eyes as they became more wary of Xianzhan. Yu Qin, who was about to leave, paused as well. He looked back at Gong Sun-ji calmly and asked, Gong Sun-ji, tell me, what can I be harboring? Gong Sun-ji did not answer the question. He glanced past the vice leaders and all the elders below and said slowly, I believe that Yu Qin is no longer appropriate for the position of leader. The leader of the Radiant Saint Hall should be someone else. The entire sacred hall was thrown into an uproar with that. The expressions of many of the elders changed as they cried out. Even the expressions of the 8 vice leaders changed, as they were unable to remain composed any longer. Gong Sun-ji was publicly opposing the leader. If he did this in any other organization or clan, it would be treachery or treason. It was a crime that could get him beheaded. For a moment, everyone was stunned by Gong Sun-ji's words. The only person who remained calm was the person being challenged, the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall, Yu Qin. How dare you? Gong Sun-ji, do you know what you are saying? Gong Sun-ji, you're committing treachery. The standard punishment is death. Why don't you hurry up and kneel and apologize? The leader might be willing to be lenient with your punishment, 2 vice leaders immediately called out. Their faces had darkened from anger. They were furious. Below, a few elders criticized Gong Sun-ji as well. However, these people only made up a tiny fraction of all the elders present. More people chose to remain silent. There were even some people who looked back and forth between Yu Qin and Gong Sun-ji. The light in their eyes flickered as if they were measuring something. Death? Leniency? Ha 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 ha. Gong Sun-ji could not help but break out into laughter, as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. His laughter echoed through the entire hall. It seemed to stand out a lot. My ancestor is the Supreme Grand Exalt of the Radiant Saint Hall. I am the descendant of the Grand Exalt, and even the Tower of Radiance came from my ancestor. Moreover, I wield the leading sword of the 9 protector swords, Godslayer's sword. May I ask who will punish me in the Radiant Saint Hall? Who has the right to judge me? Gong Sun-ji said extremely arrogantly. He thought of himself as superior to everyone else, completely looking down on the upper echelon of the Radiant Saint Hall, including the leader. Gong Sun-ji. Xianzhan bellowed out. He leapt to his feet as he glared at Gong Sun-ji. Killing intent surged within his eyes as a powerful presence erupted from his body. However, Gong Sun-ji was fearless as he faced Xianzhan, a fellow protector sword wielder. He stared at Xianzhan in a rather provoking and despising manner and said, What? Does Vice Leader Xianzhan plan on laying his hands on me? I would really like to see whether you can defeat my Godslayer's sword that ranks first with your Mindwaker's sword that ranks last. Xianzhan. The leader of the Radiant Saint Hall spoke out to stop Xianzhan from getting further agitated. He remained composed, as if he was not angered by Gong Sun-ji's words at all. Instead, he stared at him calmly and said, Gong Sun-ji, since you think I don't have the right to the position of leader, who do you think has the right? As soon as the leader said that, the huge discussion hall fell silent. It was so quiet that it would be possible to hear a pin drop. Isn't that obvious? You can actually say that the Radiant Saint Hall came from my ancestor's generation, so my ancestor is the true, supreme figure of the Radiant Saint Hall. As for me, I am the only person who possesses my ancestor's bloodline so far, and I am also the undisputed master of the Tower of Radiance in the future. I think it's obvious who's suitable for the position of leader, said Gong Sunji as he boasted shamelessly. He did not try to hide any of it, as ever since he gained Godslayer's sword, he had always eyed the position of leader. Now that an opportunity had finally presented itself, he obviously would not hesitate at all. He had already waited for too long for this day. With that, many of the elders fell silent. They could not argue back. He was the descendant of the Grand Exalt, the wielder of the Godslayer's sword, and the future master of the Tower of Radiance. The current Gong Sunji really could not be underestimated. Although the Tower of Radiance had yet to accept a master, the elders were already certain that it would become Gong Sunji's possession sooner or later. That was because the master of the Tower of Radiance was Gong Sunji's ancestor. Gong Sunji was the only person with the Grand Exalt's bloodline who had appeared so far, so he was indeed the most suitable candidate for inheriting the Tower of Radiance. They could tell when he obtained Godslayer's sword. Clearly, the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance was taking special care of him. In terms of strength, Gong Sunji is indeed no weaker than any regular Grand Prime with Godslayer's sword. He might even be more powerful than them, mumbled an elder. He spoke softly, but everyone in the hall possessed great cultivation. They heard exactly what he said. Xianzhan snorted coldly as his gaze became utterly piercing. He suddenly locked his eyes onto an elder in the crowd and directly took a step forward. Vice Leader Xianzhan, what are you trying to do? Are you doing whatever you want just because you're stronger? Why don't you have a look at where you are? Gong Sunji directly drew his protector sword. Enveloped by its dazzling light, he appeared before Xianzhan in a flash. Gong Sunji, you are trying to revolt. Think about it all. Are you really suitable for the position of leader with your current cultivation? You're only a radiant god king after all. If you didn't possess a protector sword, you wouldn't even have the right to set foot in this hall. You would struggle to make everyone yield to you, Xianzhan said coldly. I would struggle to make everyone yield to me? Gong Sunji sneered. He glanced below and said, since Vice Leader Xianzhan says that I, Gong Sunji, would struggle to make everyone yield to me, I would like to see if there are any people who support me, and how many people who do. Those who support me, please move to my side. Immediately, the elders in the discussion hall began to move. After a moment of hesitation and thought, people began to make their way behind Gong Sunji. Gradually, more and more elders moved. In the end, there were actually half the elders who stood behind Gong Sunji. Xianzhan's face became extremely sunken when he saw this. Even Biyao, Han Xian, and Donglin Yanshua's expressions became very ugly. Chapter 2588, A New Leader. The remaining half of the elders were clearly surprised when they saw so many people support Gong Sunji. Their original beliefs began to waver. In the end, another portion of people arrived behind Gong Sunji. Now, 60% of the elders supported Gong Sunji. Sigh. Gong Sunji is the descendant of the Grand Exalt after all. Suddenly, a vice leader let out a soft sigh and slowly stood up as well, arriving beside Gong Sunji. With Gong Sunji's identity and status, I don't oppose him if he wants to control our Radiant Saint Hall, said another vice leader. Although he did not stand with Gong Sunji, his words had already expressed his support of Gong Sunji. Gong Sunji wields the most powerful protector sword. I believe as he grows in strength, he'll be able to unleash more and more of the power from the protector sword. I believe the Radiant Saint Hall will become more and more powerful under Gong Sunji's lead, said a third vice leader, standing with Gong Sunji. Immediately, the discussion hall fell silent again. The atmosphere was rather strange. More than 60% of the elders and 3 vice leaders chose to support Gong Sunji. This outcome caught many people off guard. They found it rather difficult to accept. Even Xianzhan was silenced. He had never thought that Gong Sunji would have gained such a great influence over the Radiant Saint Hall unknowingly. Leader Yu Qin, I, Gong Sunji, hereby challenge you formally. If you defeat me, I will never mention this matter ever again in the future, Gong Sunji called out. His face had become flushed from his emotions. He clearly seemed extremely excited. Even though Yu Chen was the only Grand Prime of the Radiant Saint Hall, Gong Sunji possessed a protector sword. He did not fear Yu Chen at all. The sacred hall was thrown into an uproar. Someone had actually challenged the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall publicly. This was definitely unprecedented in the history of the organization. This was because the leader was the most powerful person in charge of the Radiant Saint Hall. They could mobilize everything that the Radiant Saint Hall had. They were the person who possessed the greatest authority. Challenging the leader was opposing the leader. There would never be a good outcome for doing so. The consequences would be extremely severe. However, at this moment, everyone discovered in their misery that there was no longer anyone who could keep Gong Sunji at bay within the Radiant Saint Hall. Apart from his identity as the Grand Exalt's descendant, just being a wielder of a protector sword made him undefeatable. Gong Sunji, if you want to challenge the leader, you need to get through us first. Gong Sunji, why don't you try not using the protector sword's power? Biyao and Donglin Yanxue stood forward together. Their protector swords flickered brightly as a holy light wrapped around them. They stood up to Gong Sunji. Gong Sunji, you better give up. Many of us won't yield to you even if you become the leader, as you lack the prestige that can convince everyone, Han Xian said as well, trying to persuade Gong Sunji. You want to stop me? Gong Sunji's eyes shone with cold light. Killing intent appeared. He did not try to hide any of it. Biyao and Donglin Yanxue did not shy away at all. They seemed like they were ready to stop Gong Sunji even if at the cost of their lives. The protectors of the Radiant Saint Hall were about to clash. They were ready to start fighting at any time. Even though they could do nothing to one another, they did not lose out in comparative might. Stop! Just when the protectors were about to start fighting, the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall, Yu Chen, called out, stopping the protectors just in time. He said sternly, the protector swords are the greatest power of our Radiant Saint Hall. The only reason our Radiant Saint Hall possesses such a great status on the desolate plain right now is because of the protector swords. As wielders of the protector swords, you should be united. Do not fight among yourselves, or it will be the greatest loss for our Radiant Saint Hall, Yu Chen said powerfully. He radiated with righteousness, shining with light. At that moment, he seemed like such a great man, so selfless. Gong Sunji. Yu Chen looked at Gong Sunji. His eyes shone brightly as he said in a rather liberated fashion, since you won the position of leader, I'll step down from now onwards. I won't be the leader of the Radiant Saint Hall anymore. Yu Chen's words were shocking. His decision immediately threw the sacred hall into an uproar. Everyone experienced emotional turmoil. Although a group of people supported Gong Sunji in becoming the leader, these elders were still heavily impacted when Yu Chen truly stepped down. Some of them even began to question their own decision. Leader, you must not, Xian Zhan and the other vice leaders called out and did their best to persuade Yu Chen. Yu Chen raised his hands to stop them. He said in a righteous manner, I've already made my decision. There's no need to say anything more. As long as the Radiant Saint Hall can become more and more prosperous, anyone can become the leader. Gong Sunji, I hope the Radiant Saint Hall will become more and more prosperous under your lead. Throwing that out there, Yu Chen drifted away. He left in an extremely straightforward manner. He felt no reluctance towards letting go of the position as leader. Instead, it felt like he had been freed. Brother Yu Chen, Xian Zhan immediately chased after him. Leader, leader. From behind, the furious and unhappy voices of the elders rang out. Many of the elders followed him closely. Gong Sunji smiled victoriously inside the majestic sacred hall. He looked at the throne that represented supreme authority as his eyes lit up with desire and uncontainable excitement. Biyao, Han Xian, Donglin Yanxue, and Xian Ming remained silent. They were powerless to change anything now that this had already happened. I never thought that Gong Sunji would have already roped in so many members of the upper echelon. It was the decision from these elders and the 3 vice leaders that forced the leader to leave, as the leader did not wish to see the Radiant Saint Hall collapse from within. He could only give up the position as a result, Xian Ming said to Donglin Yanxue, Han Xian, and Biyao secretly. His voice was filled with helplessness. Tens of thousands of kilometers beyond the radiant Saint Hall, the white-robed Yu Chen and Xian Zhan stood atop a mountain shrouded by clouds. Yu Chen, who had just stepped down, was composed and unrestrained. However, Xian Zhan, who stood before him, had a heavy heart. Brother Yu Chen, why must you do this? Xian Zhan looked at Yu Chen deeply and sighed. Yu Chen stood with his arms behind his back. He looked in the direction of the radiant Saint Hall. Warmth filled his eyes. It was just like a child looking as his mother. It was filled with a gentle and indescribable feeling. The radiant Saint Hall is my home. As long as my home is here, as long as it still exists, it isn't important who makes the decisions. Gong Sunji refused to continue with his ordinary life after receiving the protector sword. He became brimming with ambition. I could tell that my position caught his eye long ago, so everything that happened today was within my expectations. If I did not step down, the radiant Saint Hall would not be able to avoid internal conflict. If it grew severe, the entire radiant Saint Hall would even be ripped apart, divided into pieces. That is not what I wish to see. Yu Chen looked at Xian Ming calmly. He did not feel anything from losing the position as leader, as if these names of renown and positions of power were nothing in his eyes. The radiant Saint Hall now faces a rare age of prosperity, which requires you all to be united even more. Only with unity can you be powerful. Nothing can be allowed to happen to us internally at a time like this, let alone internal conflict. Xian Zhan, I hope that you understand this. Brother Yu Chen. Xian Zhan was embittered. He had no idea what to say. Just how many people in the radiant Saint Hall would be able to behave as selflessly as Yu Chen, devoting themselves wholeheartedly so that the radiant Saint Hall would grow in power. He even gave up his position as leader to avoid internal strife. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for Gong Sunji to obtain the position, as 5 of the 6 protectors stood with Yu Chen. Xian Zhan, you should return. With Gong Sunji's prestige, he will struggle to make everyone accept him. I hope that you can assist him for the sake of the radiant Saint Hall. You can't let anything happen to the radiant Saint Hall internally no matter what. Chapter 2589. Something Major Xian Zhan knew that Yu Chen had already made up his mind. As such, no matter what he did, he would not be able to stop Yu Chen from leaving the desolate plain. He could only let out a long, helpless sigh. He understood Yu Chen. He knew that Yu Chen had no desire to rule. The radiant Saint Hall was his home. As long as this home was fine and could grow in prosperity, he would be satisfied. Whether he was in charge did not seem all that important. Stepping down as leader gave Yu Chen a sense of liberation. He took on the position in the past because the radiant Saint Hall needed him. They needed an expert like him. Now that the radiant Saint Hall had their protectors, it was no longer necessary for him to watch over it. Brother Yu Chen, take care. Xian Zhan clasped his fist towards Yu Chen and bid him farewell. Xian Zhan, you take care too. You have to pay more attention to the artifact spirit of the Tower of Radiance once I leave. As soon as the artifact spirit awakens, you have to get to the bottom of the matter with the marshal's soul lineage. This was the last thing that Yu Chen said. With that, he turned into a streak of white light and shot off into the horizon, vanishing in an instant. He left the desolate plain alone, without any reluctance. Xian Zhan remained where he stood. He stared in the direction that Yu Chen had left in for quite some time before gradually returning to his senses. However, he seemed lonely at that moment. Gong Sunji, Xian Zhan uttered Gong Sunji's name. He ground his teeth as his eyes were filled with coldness. But very soon, he calmed down. He returned to normal, returning to the radiant Saint Hall like nothing had happened at all. However, when Xian Zhan returned to the radiant Saint Hall, Gong Sunji was already sitting down on the throne for the leader eagerly. He was in high spirits, and he seemed like he looked down upon the world. Xian Zhan, where is Yu Chen? Gong Sun-ji immediately asked in an arrogant manner like he was in charge when he saw Xianzhan return. He has already left the desolate plain, Xianzhan said emotionlessly. What? Yu Qin has left? He has left the desolate plain? Really? Gong Sun-ji beamed. He immediately lightened up with that news. He felt at ease. Yu Qin had assumed the position as leader quite some time ago, so he held great influence in the Radiant Saint Hall. That made Gong Sun-ji worry very much. He was worried that Yu Chen's existence would threaten his position one day. Now that he had left, Gong Sun-ji became completely fearless. Xianzhan, I've never found Gong Sun-ji pleasing to the eye. Now that he has become the leader, I oppose this all the most. Why don't you take us and leave the Radiant Saint Hall? We can found our own organization, Mohe of the 8 vice leaders said to Xianzhan secretly at this moment. That's right. Xianzhan, we're willing to found our own organization with you as the leader. Xianzhan, I would hate to see that bastard Gong Sun-ji order us around. Does he really think he's a big deal? If he doesn't have a protector sword, I could crush him with a single finger. Who cares what bloodline he possesses? If he angers me, I'll kill him even if he's a direct descendant of a Grand Exalt. The other vice leaders all added secretly after Mohe. They were unwilling to yield to Gong Sun-ji's rule. They would much rather leave with Xianzhan. After all, not only was Xianzhan the leader of the 8 vice leaders, but he was also a straightforward person that garnered respect. He was also a wielder of a protector sword, so the other vice leaders were completely willing to follow him. Xianzhan shook his head gently. He stopped the vice leaders. He did not wish for the Radiant Saint Hall to just be torn apart like this. In 3 days, I, Gong Sun-ji, will formally hold the ceremony for ascending to power. I will invite the leaders of all the major organizations on the desolate plain to celebrate with me. Afterwards, I will personally lead everyone to the Cloud Plain to take back the method of the Exalted Saint. Jianchen remained within his residence in the Tian Yuan clan. He looked at an extremely beautiful flower that stood at only 2 meters tall before him with great eagerness. The flower was very special. It was not rooted to the ground. Instead, it hovered in the air, and its roots moved around and extended casually like living tendrils. They seemed to glisten with light, and they would emit powerful pulses of energy from time to time. It was evidently trying to conceal the energy to the best of its ability, but it was clearly unable to present itself in its most basic form. A sliver of energy would always leak out accidentally. The flower was the immortal devouring orchid that Jianchen had been raising. Late God King already. It looks like the corpses of primordial realm experts really are great nourishment for you. If this continues, you'll probably break through again and reach the primordial realm before long, Jianchen muttered to himself as he looked at the immortal devouring orchid. As if it could understand Jianchen, the immortal devour flower unfurled every one of its petals like it was smiling in its own way. At the same time, it gave off a mental pulse that was filled with joy. Ever since it became a god king, the immortal devouring orchid could communicate mentally with Jianchen. However, perhaps as a result of natural restrictions, it still could not assume a human form. Once you reach the primordial realm, you might be able to assist me, Jianchen added. He became more and more eager about the future. The immortal devouring orchid grew at a rate that was far too astonishing. It was as if as long as it had sufficient nourishment, it could continue to grow without any obstruction. It was like no bottlenecks existed for it at all. Jianchen had a strong feeling that the immortal devouring orchid really might be of great help to him in the future. It might surpass him with its current rate of growth. Moreover, this feeling became more and more intense as the immortal devouring orchid grew. The immortal devouring orchid swayed gently in the air. It bent down and nudged Jianchen's arm gently. It seemed extremely close to Jianchen. It was as if being able to help Jianchen was the happiest thing it could do. A war is coming. I don't have time to accompany you. Work hard on cultivation. You've already consumed several infinite prime corpses. I think the effects of the infinite prime corpses will decrease once you reach the primordial realm. It looks like I need to prepare some corpses of chaotic primes for you, Jian Chen said softly. He said that easily, but if anyone else heard his words, they would be utterly frightened. Chaotic primes were basically all figures equivalent to great elders in any peak organization. They possessed great authority and exceptional abilities, yet he treated them as simply nourishment. The immortal devouring orchid wrapped around the two infinite prime corpses Jian Chen had given it before entering Jian Chen's water cloud hall. It continued to cultivate. After the immortal devouring orchid vanished, Jian Chen stood up and made his way out. He looked into the distance and murmured, "It looks like the Four Symbols Alliance is about to do something major this time." Chapter 2590, Facing a Ruler. The peak experts of the Four Symbols Alliance are on the move. I can sense the presence of two Grand Primes. They're making their way over here with the young Star Lord. As soon as he emerged from the residence, Su Ran appeared before Jian Chen and said sternly. The two Grand Primes have not concealed themselves. They've come with quite the scene, which is why I was able to sense them. It looks like the situation is far more severe than last time, Su Ran said sternly. Her expression was very ugly. She could not deal with Grand Primes yet. Even Su Ran felt powerless in the face of Grand Primes. Jian Chen's eyes narrowed. He stared at the eastern fortress of the Pingtian Empire and coldness flashed through his eyes. The eastern fortress of the Pingtian Empire was in ruins. The ground was uneven, littered with various holes of various sizes. These holes were craters left behind by the intense battle when the young Star Lord attacked the Pingtian Empire. The huge, majestic wall was like a huge dragon that had been cut in half. There was a gaping hole as it stood damaged. Quick, quick. Move some rocks there and fill up the hole. Contact the group collecting rocks and get them to hurry up. Filling up these holes require a tremendous amount of materials. Quick, move all the waste collected from the fortress to the group for refining artifacts. The materials used to build the fortress are extraordinary. Don't waste them. The group can recycle or reuse them. There was no peace within the ruined eastern fortress at all. Various cries rang out in the surroundings. Instead, it seemed busy. Tens of thousands of cultivators were scattered about the fortress. Under the coordination of many group leaders, they cleaned up the battlefield and rebuilt everything. Such scenes were not limited to the eastern fortress. It was the same with the two other destroyed fortresses. In the years when Ming Dong watched over the Pingtian Empire, they developed extremely rapidly. Their accumulation of both wealth and heritage during those years was incomparable to the past. Even though their strength was nowhere close to the Blood Sun Empire, Shi Empire, and other everlasting empires that had stood for millions of years, they could endure the losses from a war or two. Boom! At this moment, a great rumble rang out. Powerful energy surged out, causing the entirety of the ground at the fortress stood on to shake. Dust was kicked into the air where cultivators gathered in groups. Wails constantly rang out. Moments before, powerful energy shot over from the sky, leading to a great explosion there. It took the lives of several dozen cultivators on the spot and injured even more people. The cultivators responsible for cleaning up the battlefield and the reconstruction were relatively weak. Most of them were at the origin realm, and only a tiny portion of them were at godhood. The energy that shot over from the sky had reached God King, so there would obviously be casualties. How dare you? Who has attacked our Pingtian Empire? A call rang out. A God King shot over with lightning speed. He unleashed his presence, enveloping the entire fortress. He was an early God King, an expert responsible for watching over the eastern fortress temporarily. 8 overgods stood behind him. Not a lot of experts were stationed here where a damaged fortress of the Pingtian Empire stood, as many God Kings were injured during the battle several days ago. Only an early God King was stationed here. Ha ha ha, the Pingtian Empire actually wants to rebuild the fortress here? Have you asked for my permission? Thunderous laughter rang out from the horizon, echoing through the sky. A group of people steadily approached the Pingtian Empire from the horizon. The person at the very front was a handsome young man who only seemed to be in his 20s. He had a striking appearance and was haughty. He did not seem to take anyone seriously. He was the young Star Lord, Tian Yao. An old woman and a middle-aged man followed behind the young Star Lord. Even though the two of them had concealed some of their presence, those with sharper senses could still feel a terrifying energy, enough to shake up the world, was hidden within their bodies. They were two of the 5 ancestors from the Four Symbols Alliance, Gongji and Wu Lu. Behind them were experts of various levels from the Four Symbols Alliance. Of course, these people actually belonged to Gongji and Wu Lu's organizations. Who are you? The God King's expression changed. He glanced past the cultivators behind the young Star Lord and could tell with a single glance that they were wearing the uniform of the Four Symbols Alliance. The space above the fortress pulsed, and Jian Chen appeared silently along with Su Ran. Jian Chen was calm. As he faced the experts from the Four Symbols Alliance, he did not become flustered at all. He looked past the young Star Lord and stared at Wu Lu and Gong Ji behind him. Even the two of you have personally come. It looks like your Four Symbols Alliance is determined to become enemies with our Tian Yuan clan. Although the young Star Lord had led the people of the Four Symbols Alliance to attack the Pingtian Empire last time, all those people had changed their identities, and they had fought under a banner with 9 stars. They could place all the responsibility on the young Star Lord and distance themselves from the entire matter. But this time, they had directly come while wearing the uniform of the Four Symbols Alliance, allowing people to recognize them in a single glance. This clearly meant that the Four Symbols Alliance was formally opposing the Tian Yuan clan. They were becoming enemies. Our Four Symbols Alliance has already yielded to the Star Brilliance Mountain. The young Star Lord is our young master. We all obey him, Gong Ji said. She knew Jian Chen's composure came from the heavenly palace of Bisheng, so she mentioned the Star Brilliance Mountain. Only with the Star Brilliance Mountain did their Four Symbols Alliance become fearless of the heavenly palace of Bisheng. At the same time, the Gentle Breeze ancestor, Zheng Hu, and Chang Fengyun stood on a mountain in the headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance, staring in the direction of the Pingtian Empire. Even though they were extremely far away from the Pingtian Empire, they could see the entire cloud plain with a single glance, let alone the southern region. The senses of Grand Prime souls were powerful enough to envelop an entire plain. Sigh. Gong Ji and Wu Lu are far too impulsive. The Gentle Breeze ancestor sighed gently. He knew that now that all of this had happened, he could no longer stop them. He could no longer stop anything. Now, we can only hope that everything develops optimistically. Chang Fengyun felt extremely powerless as well. Let's watch on for now. Gong Ji and Wu Lu definitely have their reasons for making this decision. Benefits don't come without a cost, said Zheng Wu. Internally, he agreed with Wu Lu and Gong Ji's thoughts to a certain degree. Chapter 2591, Confrontation with Composure. You all obey the young Star Lord? Jian Shen sneered and said, the young Star Lord wants to destroy my Tian Yuan clan. He wants to destroy the Pingtian Empire. Does your Four Symbols Alliance plan on taking part? Gong Ji said nothing. Wu Lu glanced at her before looking back at Jian Chen. A sliver of helplessness appeared in his eyes, and he said, Jian Chen, we know you have the heavenly palace of Bisheng backing you, but the heavenly palace of Bisheng is nowhere near as glorious as it was in the past. If you continue opposing the young Star Lord, even the heavenly palace of Bisheng won't be able to keep you safe. It's best if you give up on your pride and kneel and bow to the young Star Lord, admitting that you were wrong. You should beg for the young Star Lord's forgiveness. Ha ha ha, that's right. Jian Chen, kneel and bow your head. Admit your mistakes. If you satisfy me, I might spare you. The young Star Lord chuckled aloud. He was in high spirits, acting as if Jian Chen was done for. However, the young Star Lord sneered inside as killing intent surged. Jian Chen humiliated me like this, and he even killed my only servant. This grievance runs so deep that if I don't kill him, I'll never drop the matter. However, if I can embarrass him before I kill him, it'll be satisfying. However, the young Star Lord did not understand Jian Chen. Jian Chen was not the type of person to kneel and beg for forgiveness. He would rather die in battle than yield. Jian Chen could not be bothered to speak to the young Star Lord. He directly ignored him. Instead, he only looked at Wu Lu and Gong Ji and said, "Our Tian Yuan clan never shows mercy to our opponents. If you regret and repent, it's still not too late. Without the heavenly palace of Bisheng, your Tian Yuan clan is actually nothing in our eyes," Wu Lu said gently. Her voice was taunting, as if she was scoffing at Jian Chen since he still could not see the situation he was in even now. The young Star Lord was immediately angered when he saw how Jian Chen ignored him. He snarled coldly and said, "If that's the case, I will make you watch the Ping Tian Empire and the Tian Yuan clan get destroyed before you while you can't do anything. I wonder what kind of expression you'll have when you feel so powerless." Towards the end, the young Star Lord could not help but laugh aloud. He was already confident about destroying the Tian Yuan clan. At that moment, he seemed to be able to see the despair and helplessness on Jian Chen's face, along with the sorrow when his own beloved woman ended up in the arms of someone else. The young Star Lord stared at the depths of the Ping Tian Empire and said loudly, "People of the Tian Yuan clan, listen up. I am the young Star Lord from the Star Brilliance Plain. I am the only child of the supreme ruler of the Star Brilliance Plain, a renowned expert in the Saints' world, the Nine Brilliant Star Lord. Your patriarch, Jian Chen, has offended me, and he has killed my servant. He has completely fallen out with me, so I will definitely destroy the Tian Yuan clan. It won't just be the Tian Yuan clan either. The Ping Tian Empire will be included as well. I will wipe it off the face of the Cloud Plain. However, I am not a bloodthirsty person. Considering that there are many innocent people in the Ping Tian Empire, I'll give you 3 days to flee the Ping Tian Empire. After those 3 days, I will have a bloodbath in the Ping Tian Empire and the Tian Yuan clan. No one will be spared." The young Star Lord's voice boomed out through the entire Ping Tian Empire. At that moment, everyone in the empire was alarmed, including the people in the Dong'an province. His voice tore through the protective formations of the Tian Yuan clan, echoing in the sky for quite some time. Jian Chen's face sank. He turned back and glanced in the direction of the Tian Yuan clan before looking at Wu Lu and Gong Ji who stood behind the young Star Lord. With the young Star Lord's cultivation, it was impossible for his voice to pass through the protective formations of the Tian Yuan clan and reach the interior. He could only do so because of Wu Lu and Gong Ji were secretly assisting him. Figures flickered behind Jian Chen. The 8 infinite prime protectors arrived behind Jian Chen from the Tian Yuan clan. They were all stern as they faced the uniformed experts of the Four Symbols Alliance fearfully. "Jian Chen." A gentle call rang out from the distance. Shangguan Mu'er carried the zither of the demonic cry and appeared beside Jian Chen. She stared at the people with her enchanting eyes. Her face was cold. "Humph. You people who have been sitting on the fence the entire time, when Brother Ming Dong was here, you were really polite to our Tian Yuan clan, even saying that you were our best friends. And just how long since Brother Ming Dong's departure that your Four Symbols Alliance has begun drawing your swords against our Tian Yuan clan? You wretched people are utterly shameful." Newbies stood behind Jian Chen and shouted out. He spat at the people from the Four Symbols Alliance. By now, the upper echelon and the god kings of the Tian Yuan clan had all arrived behind Jian Chen. "Protector Shui, the Tian Yuan clan is truly facing destruction this time. I haven't heard of this young Star Lord before, but the Nine Brilliant Star Lord really is a supreme expert," Protector Qi said secretly from behind Jian Chen. Now that 2 ancestors from the Four Symbols Alliance had personally stood forward and brought many experts with them, Protector Qi immediately became rather pale from fright. He felt fearful. Protector Shui nodded. He was extremely stern. He said nothing in reply. The Tian Yuan clan is probably done for. Protector Shui, let's flee the Tian Yuan clan, Protector Qi said. Protector Shui only replied after a long moment of thought, it's far too soon to make this decision. I believe in the patriarch. I believe in the Tian Yuan clan. I know Jian Shen has things he can depend on, but the situation right now cannot be compared to the past. The Star Brilliance Mountain is no weaker than the heavenly palace of Bisheng. Moreover, the young Star Lord is the young master of the Star Brilliance Mountain. Although Min Dong possesses some status in the heavenly palace of Bisheng, can his status be greater than the young Star Lord? Protector Qi replied. Seeing how Protector Shui still did not waver, he just made up his mind and said, whatever, you can stay, but I'm leaving. Remaining here even when you know it's certain death is not a clever decision. I can't afford to lose my life over some benefits from the Tian Yuan clan. With that, Protector Qi immediately flew forward. He traveled far away from Jianshen and said, I, Qi Hui, formally leave the Tian Yuan clan. Although the Tian Yuan clan has offended Sir Qi Hui, have never shown any disrespect to Sir. I hope you can spare me this time. Ha ha ha, you can go. I'll spare you. The young Star Lord laughed aloud. Qi Hui rejoiced with that. He finally stopped worrying. He said loudly, Sir is a forthright and righteous man. You have gained me admiration. With that, Qi Hui shot off, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Protector Qi's departure had a heavy impact on the upper echelon of the Tian Yuan clan. After all, he was one of the two most powerful protectors they had recruited. Now that he had left the Tian Yuan clan without any hesitation, many members of the upper echelon became heavy-hearted. Protector Qi. Protector Qi he, sigh, some protectors behind Jianshen all revealed very ugly expressions. They all sighed dejectedly as many of their eyes flickered with uncertainty. Humph. You all fear death. Even if you've reached the primordial realm, your future accomplishments will be extremely limited. Qing Yishuan stood forward in her azure clothes and said coldly. It's no problem. Jianshen remained calm and composed. He did not show any negative emotions at all. For any organization to grow, they must undergo many dangerous challenges. What our Tian Yuan clan faces this time is indeed a huge disaster, but if we can make it through it, we will definitely rise up. If we fail, the Tian Yuan clan will cease to exist. Jianshen looked back at the people behind him and said, if you are unwilling to stay behind and fight alongside us, you can leave right now. I will not blame you. Chapter 2592, Powerful Reinforcements. With that, the light in the eyes of many protectors and god kings who were either recruited or joined of their own volition flickered. They either hesitated or were stuck in a great dilemma. However, this hesitation only lasted for a few seconds before a few god kings flew out from the crowd. They clasped their fists at Jianshen and left the Tian Yuan clan without hesitation. More and more people left the Tian Yuan clan. Aside from god kings, there were many over-gods, gods, and even deities. As these people discussed among themselves secretly, they learned of the young Star Lord's identity and background. After some consideration, they did not believe the Tian Yuan clan could survive the young Star Lord's wrath, so they chose to leave. Guang Yun, are you leaving as well? A stern voice rang out from behind Jianshen. It came from an old man, one of the primordial realm protectors of the Tian Yuan clan. People called him Protector Xing. Jianshen was familiar with Protector Xing. As a matter of fact, he had a rather deep impression of him because he was one of the 4 protectors who stopped him when he returned with Shangguan Moor. The 4 protectors were Protector Xing, Protector Bai, Protector Mei, and Protector Shui. The 4 of them always attended to the Tian Yuan clan. Out of all the protectors recruited by the clan, they were the primordial realm experts who had truly devoted their service to the clan and worked hard. The Guang Yun mentioned by Protector Xing was also a protector of the Tian Yuan clan. He was leaving. Guang Yun was a sturdy, middle-aged man. He looked back at Protector Xing and shook his head with a gentle sigh as he said, that's the young Star Lord, the child of the 9 brilliant Star Lord. How can I dare to oppose him? Patriarch, apologies. Guangyun clasped his fist towards Jianshan apologetically before leaving without looking back again. In the blink of an eye, 2 of the 8 protectors of the Tian Yuan clan left, causing quite a lot of the upper echelon to feel dejected. Everyone did not mind Guangyun's departure too much. After all, even though he was a primordial realm expert, he was only a 2nd heavenly layer infinite prime. What truly disappointed everyone was Protector Qi's departure. Protector Qi was a 7th heavenly layer infinite prime, the same as Protector Shui. Only Su Ran and Jian Chen were more powerful than him in the Tian Yuan clan. However, before the pressure from the young Star Lord, the protectors who chose to leave were not just Qi Hui and Guangyun. 2 more protectors announced that they would be leaving the Tian Yuan clan soon after Guangyun. With that, the protectors of the Tian Yuan clan were directly reduced to 4. They were Protector Shui, Protector Xing, Protector Bai, and Protector Mei. The 4 of you aren't leaving? Jian Chen looked back at the 4 of them and asked calmly. I owe the Tian Yuan clan. I will stay behind to fight, but if I do end up dying, please look after the young master, Patriarch, Protector Shui said fearlessly. He was not afraid of death. As he said that, he passed his divine hall to Jian Chen. He said sternly, my clan's young master is in there. Jian Chen stared at Protector Shui for a while. He did not reply. Instead, he looked at Protector Xing, Protector Bai and Protector Mei. Protector Mei giggled. She yawned and stretched rather casually, giving off quite the charm. She looked at Jian Chen flirtatiously and giggled, I'm confident in the Patriarch. I believe the Patriarch has the ability to lead us through this crisis. The Tian Yuan clan will definitely rise up. If I become a protector that has gone through thick and thin with the clan, the Patriarch definitely won't forget about us once the Tian Yuan clan reigns over the plain. We believe in the Patriarch as well. Protector Xing and Protector Bai said enthusiastically as well. However, they were unsettled inside. They were unable to achieve Protector Mei's composure. Protector Mei, will the Tian Yuan clan really be able to survive this crisis? We're staying behind because of what you said, but we won't be reduced to corpses in the end, right? Protector Xing and Protector Bai asked carefully. I have no confidence in whether we can survive or not. We do face the young Star Lord this time after all. However, I don't sense any fear from the Patriarch. Instead, I can feel that an extremely heavy killing intent is building up. I believe the Patriarch has cards he has yet to play, Protector Mei replied. She carefully looked around and continued, most importantly, not a single person closest to the Patriarch has left. They're all here. With how much the Patriarch values his friends and family, why would he let these people just wait here for their deaths? Protector Xing and Protector Bai came to a realization. Their unsettled minds immediately calmed down. Good. 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 Jian Chen reiterated. Even though he was uncertain why the 4 of them had remained behind, maybe they truly wanted to survive with the clan, or perhaps they were just putting on a show, it was already more than enough at a time like this. Remaining behind meant offending the young Star Lord after all. Afterwards, there was a mass migration of people from both the Tian Yuan clan and Ping Tian Empire. People as great as protectors and as ordinary as guards and servants left the clan. In just a short half a day, the people in the Tian Yuan clan plummeted to less than a third of their original number. Across the Ping Tian Empire, all the provincial cities chose to leave as soon as possible. The short-range teleportation formations set up in the Ping Tian Empire constantly flickered as cultivators flooded the skies as black clouds. Patriarch, are we really just going to let them leave? If they stay, they'll be able to help out. Chapter 2593. The battle erupts. The appearance of the figures immediately caused Wu Lu and Gong Ji's expressions change. Even as experts who stood at the apex of the plane, they became extremely stern at that moment. Jian Chen, who was just about to call for the Marshal's Soul Mountain, was surprised by their sudden arrival as well. The light in his eyes flickered as he looked at the people who stood with their backs towards him. He was slightly surprised, and after a moment of hesitation, he was no longer in such a hurry to call for the Marshal's Soul Mountain. Why, you've crossed the boundary, Righteous Alliance. This is the territory of our Four Symbols Alliance. Gong Ji took a step forward from behind the young Star Lord. She gave off a surging presence as she bellowed furiously with her raspy voice. Righteous Alliance, do you plan on going back on your word about the ceasefire we agreed on? Wu Lu and Gong Ji stood together as they faced the group with sunken faces. Wu Lu and Gong Ji faced a total of 7 figures. They varied in age and appearance. They were the Lord of the Heavens Linked Peak, the ancestor of the cosmic sect, Zhou Zhidao, the ancestor of the God's Fallen clan, Luo Mantian, the ancestor of the Fire God clan, Lian Wuji, the ancestor of the Tong family, Tong Wuming. Aside from the 5 of them, the 2 others were the ancestors of the Righteous Alliance who rarely showed themselves. They were the ancestor of the Daoist sect of emergence, He-Dao, and the ancestor of the heaven-quaking sect, Guli. He-Dao was a scholarly, middle-aged man. He seemed rather refined, just like a well-educated man of talent. As for Guli, he was an extremely burly man. He was bare-chested and covered with distinct, large, bronze muscles that were filled with explosive power. It was quite a sight. This time, the 7 peak experts of the Righteous Alliance had gathered here. All of them had come. They placed a very great pressure on the Four Symbols Alliance. After all, the Four Symbols Alliance was nowhere near as powerful as the Righteous Alliance. They still existed because the peak experts of the Righteous Alliance had never managed to reach a complete agreement. None of them wanted to pay the heavy price required to destroy the Four Symbols Alliance. They all wanted to keep themselves safe, which was why the Four Symbols Alliance could still exist. People from the Righteous Alliance, why have all of you come? Do you plan to engage in a bloody battle with our Four Symbols Alliance? A voice rang out. 3 figures appeared behind Wu Lu and Gong Ji. The 3 other peak experts of the Four Symbols Alliance, the Gentle Breeze ancestor, Chang Feng Yun, and Zhang Hu, had arrived together. Although the Gentle Breeze ancestor did not really agree with Wu Lu and Gong Ji's actions, they needed to remain united now that all the experts of the Righteous Alliance had come, or their defeat would be inevitable. As for the Tian Yuan clan, everyone was startled. They showed excitement. The Righteous Alliance was clearly standing on their side. At an urgent moment like this, they saw hope once again now that they had gained the support of the Righteous Alliance. Their eyes immediately lit back up. Fantastic. I never thought the Righteous Alliance would stand with the Tian Yuan clan. Protector Mei, Protector Xing, and Protector Bai celebrated inside as well. Even though the Righteous Alliance was still not enough to overcome the young Star Lord, they were more than enough to deal with the Four Symbols Alliance. The Lord of the Heavens Linked Peak stood in the air with his hands behind his back. He glanced past the young Star Lord before looking at the 5 ancestors. He said slowly, the Tian Yuan clan is a friend of our Righteous Alliance. If you plan on laying your hands on them, our Righteous Alliance will never just stand by and watch. In other words, your Righteous Alliance is going to help the Tian Yuan clan? The young Star Lord snorted coldly. Although he was just a God King, he felt no fear as he faced the 7 peak experts of the Righteous Alliance. Instead, he was condescending. He glared at the 7 peak experts and said arrogantly, if you oppose me, there will only be one fate awaiting you, death. What impudence. Luo Mantian's eyes turned cold. He gave off a terrifying presence, shaking up the surroundings. It caused the thick layer of clouds in the sky to scatter. He extended a finger, and a beam of pure energy immediately shot out. It headed directly towards the young Star Lord. The beam of energy was not powerful. It could only heavily injure God Kings. It could not kill them. Clearly, Luo Mantian only wanted to punish the young Star Lord with this strike, causing him to suffer a little. Luo Mantian, the Lord of the Heavens Linked Peak and the ancestors of the Fire God clan, Tong family, and cosmic sect called out. They all thought that Luo Mantian was acting far too reckless. It was not like he did not know who the young Star Lord was. How could he just attack him? Seeing how Luo Mantian launched an attack from just the slightest disagreement, and he even targeted the young Star Lord, Jian Chen frowned as well. He felt like Luo Mantian's actions did not make much sense. After all, the young Star Lord was the 9 brilliant Star Lord's son. Attacking the young Star Lord, regardless of whether there was any intention to kill, would mean offending the 9 brilliant Star Lord. From the moment we chose to assist the Tian Yuan clan, we've already offended the young Star Lord. Since that has already happened, why must we act so cowardly? Why don't we act more straightforwardly and completely stand with the Tian Yuan clan, and then we find a way to ally ourselves with the heavenly palace of Bisheng through the Tian Yuan clan? Chapter 2594. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak heavily injured in the blink of an eye. 3 grand primes from the Righteous Alliance, Luo Mantian, Gu Li, and He Dao, began fighting with Wu Lu and Gong Ji in outer space. The terrifying energy was extremely devastating, sweeping through the sky and blotting out the sun. It made all the stars dim as space constantly shattered and subsequently repaired itself. This had all happened too quickly. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak could not stop them even if he wanted to. The grand primes of the 2 alliances had clashed many times when the Cloud Plain was in turmoil, where they attempted many times to destroy the 4 Symbols Alliance. However, the 4 Symbols Alliance was different now. With the support of the young Star Lord, even the Righteous Alliance had to be rather wary of them. Since they've done this already, we might as well follow through with it completely. Let's destroy the 4 Symbols Alliance in a single stroke, or our Righteous Alliance will be in trouble once they really obtain the support of the Star Brilliance Mountain, Tong Wuming said secretly. That's right. If we don't destroy the 4 Symbols Alliance now, we'll probably lose the opportunity forever. After all, the young Star Lord is already standing with the 4 Symbols Alliance, while whether we can obtain the protection of the heavenly palace of Bisheng is still unknown, Zhou Zhidao added. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak stared at the battle in outer space before nodding slowly in the end. Fair enough. But since we've decided to destroy the 4 Symbols Alliance, I hope that everyone can unleash their full strength without holding back this time. Don't worry. It's an extremely urgent time right now. If anyone still holds back like before at a time like this, they'll be digging their own grave. Once the 4 Symbols Alliance recovers and gains the support of the Star Brilliance Plane, our Righteous Alliance will be reduced to nothing with our measly strength, said Zhou Zhidao. The experts of the Righteous Alliance communicated secretly. The words that they exchanged and the decision that they reached were only known by the 7 of them. In the next moment, the other Grand Primes from the Righteous Alliance moved as well, engaging in a battle against the Gentle Breeze ancestor, Chang Fengyun, and Zheng Hu. Immediately, deafening booms rang out in outer space like thunder. The entire cloud plain shook violently in the distance. This was a battle between 12 Grand Primes. It was truly devastating. The sky cracked region by region while the tremendous outer space collapsed part by part as well. Countless spatial cracks interwove with one another, forming a dense web. Violent storms of energy swept through outer space with a chaotic, brutal presence. After so many years of peace, the peak experts of the 2 alliances began fighting again. However, the battle this time was far more intense than any other time. Unlike the previous fights, the experts from the Righteous Alliance all unleashed their true strength, engaging in a battle to the death against the 4 Symbols Alliance. As a result, the 4 Symbols Alliance completely lost the upper hand as soon as the battle began. They were basically completely forced into a reactive state by the Righteous Alliance and were only able to defend. After all, not only did the Righteous Alliance possess the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, the greatest expert of the Cloud Plain, but they had 7 people as well. On the other hand, not only did the 4 Symbols Alliance possess no one who could match up to the Peak Lord, but Zheng Hu was also basically the weakest Grand Prime out of all of them. After all, Zheng Hu had only broken through to Grand Prime recently, so he was basically the weakest a Grand Prime could be. He did not have any aspects that stood out, nor was he a prodigy who could challenge those stronger than him. Everyone from the Tian Yuan clan stared at outer space. A battle between 12 Grand Primes was basically an outstanding event. It would not happen even across millions of years. Even though very few of them could see it clearly, they were still shocked and they saw the colorful sky filled with exploding energy. Don't tell me the Four Symbols Alliance can't even make it past the Righteous Alliance. Su Ran stood beside Jian Chen and gloated over their suffering. She could obviously tell that the Four Symbols Alliance was at an absolute disadvantage. The difference is far too great. They're on completely different levels. It really isn't difficult for the Righteous Alliance to destroy the Four Symbols Alliance if they use their full strength. However, if the people from the Four Symbols Alliance put up a desperate struggle or maybe even sacrifice themselves, they might be able to injure or kill 1 or 2 people from the Righteous Alliance. Even though Su Ran was not a Grand Prime, she was someone who came from the heavenly palace of Bisheng after all. Her insight was extraordinary. Jian Chen remained silent the entire time. He would observe the battle in outer space at times and would look at the young Star Lord at other times. A frown gradually appeared on his face. From the very start, the young Star Lord remained calm as if victory was within his grasp. Jian Chen felt that something was off from how composed he was. It was like the Four Symbols Alliance had a card that they had yet to play. At this moment, the tremendous might of the world appeared. Gong Ji fought against Luo Mantian and He Dao alone, so she had already begun to struggle against their attacks. She was forced to use a God-tier battle skill. This was a high-grade God-tier battle skill, one that only Grand Primes could grasp under normal circumstances. When she used it, there was a slight sense that it had fused with the ways of the world. In the end, the God-tier battle skill turned into a streak of blinding light, striking Luo Mantian with great force. Spurt. Blood sprayed from Luo Mantian's mouth, and he paled. He shot back quickly like a cannonball. Luo Mantian. He Dao's face changed as he fought alongside him. He immediately gave up on Gong Ji and flew towards Luo Mantian. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak just happened to be close to Luo Mantian as he fought the Gentle Breeze ancestor. When he saw Luo Mantian fly over with his wounds, he immediately knocked the Gentle Breeze ancestor away with a single strike. Afterwards, he extended his hand and caught Luo Mantian with a great but gentle power. He asked out of concern, "Luo Mantian, are you fine?" Luo Mantian coughed up blood. As soon as he said that, something happened. A dagger that flickered with dark green light silently appeared in his hand. It struck out with lightning speed like a venomous snake. Everything had happened far too quickly. Coupled with how the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak was completely unprepared, Luo Mantian's sneak attack was successful. The dagger stabbed right into his waist. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak produced a grunt. His eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. Afterwards, he used his hand to directly strike out mercilessly towards Luo Mantian's head with great power and laws. In that instant, Luo Mantian's presence surged. He seemed nowhere close to being injured. He struck out with both hands, colliding with the Lord of Heaven's Link Peak attack. With a rumble, he was sent flying as blood sprayed from his mouth. This time, he was spraying blood for real. "Luo Mantian, what are you doing?" Peak Lord, He Dao's expression changed drastically, and he cried out in shock. He arrived before the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak in a flash. "Luo Mantian, have you gone crazy?" "Peak Lord, are you fine?" Gu Li, who had been fighting against Wu Lu, bellowed out and immediately abandoned his opponent, approaching the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. The sudden change in the situation had disrupted the entire battlefield. At the same time, Lian Wuji, Zhou Zhidao, and Tong Wuming all stopped fighting. They all called out and hurried towards the Peak Lord. "Luo Mantian, why did you do this?" The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak clutched his wound. The blood dyed his white robes red as his face and all of his skin gradually turned a faint green. His old eyes were filled with pain as he stared right at Luo Mantian. "Peak Lord, heal up first." He Dao and Guli arrived beside the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak first. As they fought the closest to the Peak Lord, they were faster than the other three. But at this moment, something else happened. He Dao and Guli suddenly launched attacks. Chapter 2595. The tides turn. Everything had happened far too quickly. From Luo Montian's sneak attack to Guli and He Dao's combined attacks, all of it transpired in a split second. It did not even take a moment. The three of them launched sudden sneak attacks and the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak was unprepared, so they immediately inflicted unimaginable injuries to him. These wounds were even life-threatening. After all, whether it be Luo Mantian, Guli, or He Dao, they were all grand primes. Every single strike from them was devastating, and they had struck the defenseless Peak Lord with terrifying power. The destructive impact of the attacks on the Peak Lord was evident. Immediately, the Lord of the Heavens Lord Peak, who was known as the greatest expert of the Cloud Plain, faced tremendous danger. To another side, the expressions of Tong Wuming, Lian Wuji, and Zhou Zhidao suddenly changed. They stared at the sword in the Peak Lord and the fist that had collapsed his back as they felt like the world around them was spinning. They felt like the sky was collapsing. At that moment, how could they not understand? Luo Mantian of the God's Fallen Clan, He Dao of the Daoist sect of Emergence, and Guli of the Heavenquaking sect had all betrayed the Righteous Alliance. Moreover, they had done so at such a critical moment, dealing a fatal strike to the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak while he was unaware. Luo Mantian, He Dao, Guli, you all should die. The ancestor of the Fire God clan, Lian Wuji, had always been the person with the shortest temper. Their betrayal had completely infuriated him. Flames suddenly surged from his body, sweeping through the entire region. It caused the space to constantly distort as the temperature there suddenly skyrocketed. At that moment, the heat from Lian Wuji was thousands of times greater than the sun. The fire transformed into three dragons, directly charging towards Luo Mantian, He Dao, and Guli. At the same time, Tong Wuming and Zhou Zhidao struck out without any hesitation either. They both gave up on their original opponents and attacked the three of them from afar. At the same time, they quickly approached the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. However, as the space there had become unstable from their battle, their speed was inhibited, so they approached the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak rather slowly. They were nowhere near as fast as Luo Mantian and the others. Otherwise, they would have been able to reach the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak in a single step. The Gentle Breeze ancestor, Zheng Hu, and Chang Fengyun stopped fighting as well. The twist with the Righteous Alliance had stunned the three of them. They stared at the people from the Righteous Alliance with their brows furrowed. They were rather puzzled. Only Wu Lu and Gong Ji, who knew the inside story, were filled with vigor. They looked at the Righteous Alliance that had turned on themselves as they took joy in the whole matter. Gentle Breeze, what is happening? Changyang Feng asked the Gentle Breeze ancestor secretly. He was at a loss. Can't you tell now? Luo Mantian, He Dao, and Guli of the Righteous Alliance have all joined the young Star Lord, said Gong Ji. At the same time, she tossed the jade talisman that the young Star Lord had given her to the three of them. They caught the jade talisman and discovered that it did not contain a secret technique from the Star Brilliance Mountain at all. There was only a message from the young Star Lord, basically telling Gong Ji to cooperate with Luo Mantian to put on a show and get the peak experts of the Righteous Alliance to start fighting so that they could find an opportunity to launch a sneak attack on the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak was a peak third heavenly layer Grand Prime after all. He was more powerful than anyone else on the Cloud Plain. It was very difficult for regular sneak attacks to succeed. An opportunity would only present itself during the chaos of battle. I see, Qing Fengyun and Zheng Hu both came to a realization. Immediately, their gazes towards the people of the Righteous Alliance changed. It was no longer as stern as before. From today onwards, the Righteous Alliance will cease to exist on the Cloud Plain, Zheng Hu said in amazement. Out of the 7 peak experts of the Righteous Alliance, 3 of them had switched sides. The only ones that remained were the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, Tong Wuming, Lian Wuji, and Zhou Zhidao. Moreover, the Peak Lord was heavily injured, so his strength was greatly inhibited. On the other hand, their Four Symbols Alliance had gained 3 traitors, amounting to a total of 8 people. They now possessed an absolute advantage. Why do you do this? The Peak Lord's face was rather gloomy. Chunks of his skin had already changed in color, but he paid no concern to his wounds. Instead, he looked at Luo Mantian, Gu Li, and He Dao in great pain. The righteous alliance is done for. We only chose a path that would allow us to exist, Gu Li said calmly. He showed no regret or shame at all. Instead, there was just coldness and indifference. Afterwards, he and He Dao immediately retreated, pulling far away from the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. They understood the strength of the Peak Lord extremely well. He was a supreme expert who could face the heavenless demon Exalt, a grand prime who had broken through to the 4th heavenly layer, in battle. Even though he was heavily injured, he still posed a great threat to them. At the same time, Lian Wuji's 3 scorching dragons, condensed from the laws of fire, arrived and wrapped around the 3 of them. I'll burn you 3 traitors to a crisp. Lian Wuji called out. The laws of fire condensed in the surroundings, becoming more and more powerful. Boom! At this moment, a rumble rang out. Luo Mantian broke free from Lian Wuji's flame dragon first, tearing it to pieces with terrifying energy. Afterwards, the dagger in his hand flew out, gently touching the dragons around He Dao and Gu Li. The fire dragons immediately weakened like deflating balloons before being torn to pieces by the 2 of them. Immediately, the 3 of them broke free successfully. However, aside from Luo Mantian, Gu Li, and He Dao were in sorry shape. Large areas of their skin had been charred, and their faces were blackened. Lian Wuji really is powerful. He really is a 2nd heavenly layer Grand Prime after all, Gu Li glanced at his charred arm and murmured. Among the 3 of them, only Luo Mantian was at the 2nd heavenly layer. He and He Dao were both at the 1st heavenly layer. Naturally, they would struggle a little to fend off Lian Wuji's furious attack. So what if he's at the 2nd heavenly layer? He'll be dead very soon, He Dao said calmly before arriving on the side of the Four Symbols Alliance with Gu Li and Luo Mantian. They stood there coldly. Lian Wuji, Tong Wuming, and Zhou Zhidao did not chase them. Instead, they arrived at the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak side together. All of their faces were extremely ugly. It's the power of a curse. Luo Mantian, why, you really are vicious, Tong Wuming stared at the Peak Lord's green skin and said in pain. He was furious. He could tell with a single glance that the true wound that was fatal to the Peak Lord did not come from He Dao and Gu Li but the power of a curse from Luo Mantian's dagger. The power of the curse was the greatest threat. It was like a venomous snake, constantly poisoning the Peak Lord such that his life force would be sapped away at every moment. Compared to the power of the curse, the wounds that He Dao and Gu Li caused were not very severe at all. The power of the curse is very powerful. It's a curse from a 4th heavenly layer Grand Prime at the very least, Lian Wuji said extremely sternly. Chapter 2596. The Marshal's Soul Mountain descends. Tong Wuming and Zhou Zhidao's faces both became ugly as they watched the curse rapidly spread and deepen on the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak's body. The curse had surpassed the level of laws that they had grasped. As a result, the 3 of them were powerless against the curse on the Peak Lord. Curses were extremely difficult to deal with. Nullifying them required an expert who had also comprehended the laws of curses to use their own laws to slowly remove it. At the same time, the level of the curse that the Peak Lord had been inflicted with required a late Grand Prime who had comprehended the laws of curses at the very least to nullify. If one's comprehension of the laws of curses was too low, it would be like an ant attacking an elephant. Nothing would happen at all. Of course, they could also find a supreme expert who was far more powerful than the owner of the curse, using their stronger power of laws to forcefully disperse the curse and save the Peak Lord. However, not a single person present fulfilled either condition to nullify the curse. It's no problem. The curse was only embedded on a god artifact. Its power was reduced, so it can't threaten my life immediately, the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak said rather feebly. He had received sneak attacks from Luo Mantian, Gu Li, and He Dao. Not only was he heavily injured, but he even had to devote a major portion of his power to suppress the curse. As a result, he would probably struggle to even use 30% of his full power. The wounds to the body could be dealt with using high-grade pills, but he had to personally suppress the curse. I really never thought that Gu Li, He Dao, and Luo Mantian would actually betray the Righteous Alliance and work with the Four Symbols Alliance. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak let out a long sigh. He felt melancholic. It looks like our Righteous Alliance will fall to the crisis this time. Peak Lord, you're wrong. We're not working with the Four Symbols Alliance. Instead, we chose to follow the young Star Lord, Luo Mantian said indifferently from the other side. He felt no shame at all. Just by saying he was following the young Star Lord, he rendered his grievances with the Four Symbols Alliance null. Peak Lord, I must admit that you were once very wise in the past, but you've made a mistake this time. You shouldn't have supported the Tian Yuan clan. After all, the Tian Yuan clan only has some connection to the heavenly palace of Bisheng through Ming Dong. Even though Ming Dong possesses some status in the heavenly palace of Bisheng, how can he match the young Star Lord? At most, Ming Dong is the First Majesty's disciple. However, the young Star Lord is the child of the 9 brilliant Star Lord. Just that is something Ming Dong can never match up to, said Gu Li. The laws of strength revolved around him as his beefy muscles hit explosive power. His burn wounds rapidly recovered. And most importantly, a true sovereign stands behind the 9 brilliant Star Lord. That's an existence who has fused with the heavenly ways. He can interfere with the operation of the ways with his will and is a ruler of an entire world. As for the heavenly palace of Bisheng, they only have the First Majesty. How can the heavenly palace of Bisheng match up to the Star Brilliance Mountain like this? He Dao added. As soon as he mentioned the sovereign, his eyes were filled with evident respect and admiration. He knew that this so-called sovereign had only taken one extra step from the 9th heavenly layer of Grand Prime, which still made them a Grand Prime, but this step was almost impossible to take. That single step made all the difference. Righteous Alliance, ever since the Tian Empire was destroyed, we've always been in conflict. After so many years of conflict, we can finally end it all, Gong Ji said from the side of the Four Symbols Alliance. Her deep eyes showed no reluctance at all. Instead, it was filled with coldness and killing intent. What are we saying so much for? Let's do it together and destroy them sooner. From today onwards, the Cloud Plain will be under our Four Symbols Alliance's control, said Wu Lu. He was rather eager and slightly excited. Their Four Symbols Alliance could complete the ambitious wish that the Tian Empire had failed to accomplish. The gentle breeze ancestor said nothing. He continued to frown as he hovered in the sea of stars silently. He would glance past the 3 experts who had betrayed the Righteous Alliance from time to time as the light in his eyes flickered. Luo Mantian, He Dao, and Gu Li's betrayal had completely surprised him. However, their betrayal and decision to yield to the young Star Lord made the gentle breeze ancestor feel very conflicted. Their Four Symbols Alliance had already developed deep grievances with the Righteous Alliance, and it was to the point where they could no longer reconcile. Gong Ji and Wu Lu could ignore the past and forget about the grievances, but others were not able to be as broad-minded as them. Just how many people and organizations below them would be willing to forget this hatred? Chang Fengyun and Zheng Hu remained silent as well. Clearly, they struggled to accept the 3 of them. After all, many of the outstanding descendants and disciples from their clans and sects had died to the God's Fallen Clan, Heaven-Quaking Sect, and Daoist Sect of Emergence. This was not something that could be resolved in a few words. After all, not everyone could be as forgiving as Gong Ji and Wu Lu. As if she had guessed their thoughts, Gong Ji said to the gentle breeze ancestor, Chang Fengyun, and Zheng Hu secretly, our priority is to destroy the righteous alliance. As for Luo Mantian and the other two, the young Star Lord won't always remain on the cloud plane. Once the situation on the cloud plane stabilizes, we can come up with plenty of methods to deal with them. What? Why have you all stopped? Why don't you hurry up and kill the people of the righteous alliance? Only death awaits those who oppose me. At this moment, the young Star Lord flew up from the cloud plane as well. He was complacent as if victory was within his grasp. Two chaotic primes accompanied the young Star Lord. They were responsible for his safety to prevent any accidents from happening when the experts of the two alliances clashed. After the battle between the Grand Primes came to a halt, Jian Chen and Su Ran arrived in outer space as well. They arrived beside the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. Peak Lord, you wound. Jian Chen stared at the power of the curse on the Peak Lord. He was stern. He had also comprehended the laws of curses, but his comprehension still remained at early God King. As a result, he could clearly sense just how powerful the curse on the Peak Lord was. That was the power of laws from a Grand Prime. It's not life-threatening for now. It's our defeat this time. Hurry up and order a retreat. We have to give up on the cloud plane, the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak said secretly. Now that the Four Symbols Alliance had 8 experts, the Righteous Alliance had no chance at victory with just Lian Wuji, Tong Wuming, and Zhou Zhidao. They did not possess an expert who could overwhelm multiple opponents of the same level. The Gentle Breeze Ancestor is a 3rd heavenly layer Grand Prime. Even though he only broke through 2 centuries ago, only our Lord of the Heavens Link Peak can defeat him. We can only retreat now, Tong Wuming sighed gently. They were powerless to reverse the situation. Senior, it's far too soon to say that. We still don't know who will be victorious in this battle, said Jian Chen. He was calm and very composed. Afterwards, he looked at the young Star Lord and said, "You are celebrating too soon. Do you really think you can kill me with just the Four Symbols Alliance?" With that, the landscape nearby suddenly twisted. The stars vanished, and the figure of a colossal mountain silently appeared. The mountain was humongous. It could blot out the sky and block all the starlight. It rapidly consolidated from its blurry image. In the end, it seemed to become tangible, appearing in outer space silently just like that. It had arrived near the cloud plane like a ghost. That's, whether it be the Righteous Alliance or the Four Symbols Alliance, they were both stunned when they saw the mountain that suddenly appeared. The colossal mountain had arrived far too suddenly. They actually failed to sense its approach at all. They had no idea where the mountain had come from. It was as if the mountain had been hidden there the entire time and was only showing itself just then. There was actually internal strife within the Righteous Alliance, dooming them in an instant. All the experts from the Four Symbols Alliance celebrated over this. On the side of the Tian Yuan clan, Protector Shui, Protector Mei, Protector Xing, and Protector Bai's expressions were extremely ugly. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak was heavily injured, and the betrayal made them feel like the world was ending. Look, a mountain has suddenly appeared in outer space. It's such a colossal mountain, and it's actually completely condensed from energy. Just how much energy is that? Suddenly, a chaotic prime great elder cried out from within the base of the Four Symbols Alliance. Immediately, the Martial Soul Mountain that had arrived silently was exposed before everyone. Due to the great distance, the colossal mountain only seemed as large as a sesame seed to everyone. That's the Martial Soul Mountain. Why has the Martial Soul Mountain come here? Protector Shui cried out. He stared right at the mountain in outer space as his eyes shone with a strange light. The Martial Soul Mountain? Protector Shui, what kind of organization in the Martial Soul Mountain? Are they very powerful? Protector Mei, Protector Bai, and Protector Xing all looked at Protector Shui. Although the Martial Soul Mountain was very well known in the Saints' world, not everyone knew about it. Only some ancient experts or people who were well versed with information knew about its existence. The Martial Soul Mountain? What kind of organization is that? That does sound a little familiar. It seems like I've read about it in some ancient annals. I just can't remember it. A great elder from the Four Symbols Alliance frowned and murmured to himself when he heard Protector Shue's cry. He sank into his thoughts. The Martial Soul Mountain. That represents an everlasting legacy of the Saints' world, the Martial Soul lineage. Our Four Symbols Alliance doesn't have much on the Martial Soul lineage, but the records we possess describes the Martial Soul lineage to be very incredible, a great elder said sternly from one side. He stared at the Martial Soul Mountain in outer space curiously. Very incredible? How incredible? The records dictate that they are the gods of slaughter at the same level of cultivation. They are the kings of the level of cultivation they possess. A pressure suddenly appeared in outer space as a powerful pulse of energy swept through the galaxies, causing the faces of all the Grand Primes present to harden. The colossal image condensed from the Martial Soul Mountain had finally demonstrated its might and power at that moment. The Martial Soul lineage really is reputed for a reason. Just the energy in this illusionary Martial Soul Mountain has surpassed me, Lian Wuji sighed in surprise. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, Tong Wuming, and Zhou Zhidao remained silent. However, they all stared at the Martial Soul Mountain. Chapter 2598, Claiming the Life of a Grand Prime Instantly. Greetings to First Senior Brother, Second Senior Brother, and Third Senior Brother. I came across trouble this time, so I could only trouble you, Jian Chen said with his fist clasped. His gaze paused on Yu Chao. He discovered that Yu Chao had basically recovered from his wounds from the protector swords, so he immediately stopped worrying. We're one big family, so how can you talk like we're not? Moreover, out of the 8 of us, 8th junior brother is the most outstanding. Who knows, maybe we'll have to rely on you in the future, Chu Jian laughed. He truly treated Jian Chen as family without any selfish intentions, much less deception. The Grand Primes from the Four Symbols Alliance were stern. They had never thought that Jian Chen would be a member of the Martial Soul lineage. Now that the Martial Soul Mountain had come, they felt troubled. Even though the Martial Soul lineage had no Grand Primes, they were significant. Anyone who knew a little about the Martial Soul lineage would always hold some fear towards them unless they had reached a terrifying level of cultivation where they had no need to fear anything. The Martial Soul lineage is known to be invincible among the same level of cultivation. Their battle prowess is extremely incredible. However, they're only chaotic primes, and the difference between chaotic prime and grand prime is basically insurmountable. I refuse to believe that they can challenge grand primes as 9th heavenly layer chaotic primes. However, Guli from the Heaven-Quaking sect was not particularly wary of the Martial Soul lineage. He comprehended the laws of strength, making him one of the stronger experts at his level of cultivation. He took a step forward. His eyes were cold, and his killing intent was sharp. The laws of strength in the surroundings revolved around him, filling his every muscle with destructive power. He could collapse space with the slightest movement. I am Guli of the Heaven-Quaking sect, and I would like to witness the so-called Martial Soul force of the Martial Soul lineage. However, let me put it out there first. If you aren't as powerful as you are rumored to be, you can't blame me if I accidentally crush one of you with my fist. Guli sneered provokingly. Afterwards, he directly struck out. A fist tore through space with terrifying strength. It made the space there shudder and the stars shake. He did not hold back with the punch. It was filled with killing intent. You're only a Grand Prime who has comprehended the laws of strength, and you're only at the first heavenly layer as well. Yet, you still challenge our Martial Soul lineage? Chu Jian sneered in disdain. He looked at Guli, and powerful Martial Soul force suddenly shot out. It was invisible and broke free from the restraints of time and space. It could overcome all obstructions, and it entered Guli's soul the moment it shot out. Immediately, Guli grunted. He staggered as the terrifying power in his punch rapidly dispersed. His face immediately became utterly pale. His soul had been heavily injured. He endured a splitting pain, and it was as if his head was about to explode. He was in agony. The world spun around him. Chu Jian was one of the 3 most powerful people from the martial soul lineage. His martial soul force was extremely powerful. Regular Grand Primes really could not endure his martial soul force. You're a mere first heavenly layer Grand Prime, yet you're still so arrogant. Killing you is too easy. Chu Jian snorted coldly. He arrived before Gu Li with a flash and directly cut off Gu Li's head with his sword. Spurt. Blood gushed out as a head was tossed into the sky. Gu Li basically failed to put up any defenses at all. He had been beheaded in a single stroke by Chu Jian. Gu Li. Luo Mantian and He Dao cried out. They paled in fright and immediately shot over in an attempt to save him. Everything had happened far too quickly. They all failed to react in that split second, and Gu Li's head was cut off. It was just far too shocking, far too unbelievable. However, as long as a Grand Prime's soul remained intact, they would not be dead. Gu Li's head had only been cut off. His soul remained. However, his soul still had not recovered from Chu Jian's martial soul force attack. Swish. With a flash, Chu Jian struck out a second time. The sharp tip of his sword stabbed into Gu Li's forehead, piercing through it completely. Arg. This time, Gu Li finally could not help but let out a miserable wail. This was a wail from his soul. After being stabbed by Chu Jian's sword, his soul slowly dispersed. The ancestor of the heaven-quaking sect, Gu Li, was dead. The expressions of the Grand Primes from the 4 Symbols Alliance all changed when they witnessed Gu Li's death. All of them stood with their eyes widened as they stared at the dead soul on Chu Jian's sword. They experienced emotional turmoil. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, Tong Wuming, Zhou Zhidao, and Lian Wuji were completely dumbfounded. They had been petrified. That was a Grand Prime, an existence that stood at the apex of a plane. He could make the entire cloud plane tremble with just a stamp of his feet, yet he had just died like that. They struggled to believe it. At this moment, another 2 grunts rang out. They came from Luo Mantian and He Dao. The 2 of them wanted to save Gu Li. However, not only did they fail, they even froze up halfway. Their faces became ugly. Han Zong and Yu Chao attacked. They used martial soul force to injure their souls. Afterwards, Han Zong and Yu Chao flashed towards Luo Mantian and He Dao at the same time. They had completely understood the situation of the cloud plane through their short conversation with Jian Chen. They knew who the enemies were. Chapter 2599. Killing another martial soul force really is powerful. No wonder the martial soul lineage is known to be invincible among the same level of cultivation. It really might be difficult to fight against such an unbelievable power. Luo Mantian had already recovered from Han Zhang's martial soul force attack. He was extremely stern. He shivered as he thought about what he had just gone through. He had actually been stunned by martial soul force earlier, causing his awareness to completely plummet. Even though it was just a single moment, it was enough to end his life in a battle between experts. What made him feel even more fear was that he was unable to defend against the martial soul force at all. He could only act like a living target, forcefully enduring the attack. Everyone be careful. Don't fight them alone, Gong Ji called out. She was extremely stern as well. Even though her opponents were only 9th heavenly layer chaotic primes, the threat that they posed was far greater than many grand primes. The only thing that prevented Gong Ji from worrying was that the people of the martial soul lineage were basically limited to concentrating their martial soul force on a single person to influence the souls of grand primes if they wanted to stun or injure their souls. If the martial soul force was divided and used against 2 grand primes at the same time, it would not be a worry. It would not be able to influence them very much. At that moment, all the other people took action aside from the Gentle Breeze ancestor. Coupled with Luo Mantian and He Dao, a total of 6 Grand Primes fought against Han Zong, Chu Jian, and Yu Chao. Han Zong, Chu Jian, and Yu Chao were astonishingly powerful. With their cultivations at the 9th heavenly layer of chaotic prime, they managed to match the grand primes evenly. Even though they had not gained the upper hand, they had not lost the upper hand either. At the same time, the martial soul force that they emitted from time to time would cause great trouble to the grand primes of the Four Symbols Alliance. God damn it, their power is strange. Whenever I clash with him, my soul will be struck by a wondrous power. I can't block it at all. We can't fight them in a drawn-out battle, or we'll definitely be the ones to suffer. We have to finish it fast, Zheng Hu called out. His face was extremely ugly and slightly pale. Zheng Hu had only broken through to Grand Prime recently. His soul was the weakest out of all the Grand Primes present, so he was the first one to weaken. Boom! With a great rumble, Gong Ji was sent flying by a single punch from Han Zong. She shot away like a comet as blood oozed from the corner of her mouth. Impossible, impossible. Gong Ji was at a loss. Her eyes widened as she stared at Han Zong in completely disbelief. Why, your comprehension is clearly only at chaotic prime, so why is your energy so tremendous? It has clearly surpassed chaotic prime, Gong Ji hissed like she had gone insane. Their comprehension remains at chaotic prime, but their cultivation has already broken through to grand prime. This doesn't make sense. Luo Mantian was stunned as well as he stared at Han Zong blankly. Comprehension referred to the comprehension of the laws of the world, while cultivation referred to the amount of energy accumulated within an expert. All cultivators in the saints' world would have their cultivation restricted by their comprehension. Their cultivation could only increase when their comprehension had increased. As a result, comprehension would always come before cultivation. There were people who possessed greater comprehension than their cultivation, but there had never been anyone who had greater cultivation than their comprehension. It was the laws of the world, an iron rule. However, Han Zong had clearly defied this. The martial soul lineage is actually so powerful. To another side, the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, Lian Wuji, Zhou Zhidao, and Tong Wuming were shocked. Even though they had heard of the martial soul lineage before, all that they knew came from rumors and records. They could not avoid some doubt about it all. Yet, only now when they personally witnessed the strength of the martial soul lineage were they truly astonished. Let's join in as well. This time, we have to make the Four Symbols Alliance pay a heavy price, Tong Wuming said coldly. Killing intent surged in his eyes. The arrival of the martial soul lineage had turned the tables once again. They had regained the upper hand. We have to carve Luo Mantian and He Dao into pieces. They definitely have to pay a heavy price for their actions. Zhou Zhidao ground his teeth. He utterly resented Luo Mantian and He Dao. I'll make their souls endure the scorching of flames for 10,000 years. I'll make them die after they go through agony, Lian Wuji said sternly. Jian Shen had already collected Gu Li's corpse. As soon as he heard the words of the three experts, he immediately said, "Three seniors, it's best if you rest a little. Our martial soul lineage will deal with the Four Symbols Alliance." With that, he flew to the nearby Martial Soul Mountain. On the Martial Soul Mountain, 4th senior brother Yun Ziding, 5th senior sister Su Qi, 6th senior brother Bai Rufeng, and 7th senior brother Qing Shan stood together. They paid close attention to the battle below. They did not take part because the battle below had reached the level of Grand Primes. Even though there were chaotic primes among them, they were nowhere near as powerful as Han Zong, Chu Jian, and Yu Chao. Greetings, 4th senior brother, 5th senior sister, 6th senior brother, and 7th senior brother. Jian Shen clasped his fist at the four of them. There's no need for you to be so polite. I saw you collect the corpse of the Grand Prime earlier. Chapter 2600, A Complete Victory. With our powers combined, we can probably rival Senior Chu Jian and Senior Yu Chao. Jian Shen was in shock as he sensed their combined power. Among the five of them, Yun Ziding was a 5th heavenly layer chaotic prime, Su Qi was a 3rd heavenly layer chaotic prime, Bai Rufeng was a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime, and Qing Shan had only reached infinite prime recently. If it were other cultivators, even if they combined their powers through a formation, they definitely could not reach the level of a 9th heavenly layer chaotic prime. The energy within a 5th heavenly layer and a 9th heavenly layer chaotic prime did not vary by just quantity. There was also a difference in quality. However, the martial soul lineage could easily achieve this feat through the martial soul array. 8th junior brother, who should we kill? Qing Shan's voice rang out in Jian Chen's head. As they stood in the martial soul array, the 5 of them could communicate without words. They only needed to use their minds. They only needed to think of something, and the 4 other people could sense it at the same time. It was extremely profound. Let's pick the weakest first. It'll be much easier if we start with the weaker ones. We might not be able to kill the stronger ones with a single strike, said Jian Chen. It was better to kill one than to injure them all. Moreover, the corpses of Grand Primes were too great of a temptation for him to miss out on. Just a single corpse from an expert at such a level could provide immeasurable assistance to the immortal devouring orchid's growth. The immortal devouring orchid's demand for corpses would only increase in the future. Its demand for their cultivation level would increase as well, so he needed to collect as many as he could. Even if we're in the martial soul array, we can injure Grand Primes at most just with the 5 of us. Killing them will be rather difficult. Use your martial soul force to keep one of my opponents busy. Leave the killing to your senior brother, Chu Jian said secretly. He fought against Zheng Hu and Chang Feng Yun of the 4 Symbols Alliance alone. He used his advantage of martial soul force to temporarily match Zheng Hu and Chang Feng Yun. Jian Chen glanced down. He understood the peak experts of the 4 Symbols Alliance a little and said, the 2 of them are Chang Feng Yun and Zheng Hu. Chang Feng Yun became a Grand Prime many years ago, but it's said that Zheng Hu only broke through recently. Kill him first. Jian Chen's eyes were cold. There was no pity at all. Now, he had completely fallen out with the 4 Symbols Alliance. They were enemies. Coupled with the factor of the young Star Lord, their relationship had reached a point where only one side could emerge alive. Let's keep Chang Feng Yun busy and make time for second senior brother, Yun Ziding immediately said. The next moment, the martial soul array shone brightly. A power that could rival 9th heavenly layer chaotic primes erupted, suddenly shooting out as a pillar of dazzling energy. It headed right towards Chang Feng Yun. Chang Feng Yun frowned. He was extremely stern. As a Grand Prime, an attack from a mere 9th heavenly layer chaotic prime was nothing in his eyes, but he dared not underestimate the martial soul lineage. He equipped a set of God artifact armor. Energy surged around him, and the power of laws wrapped around him. He directly extended a finger. That gesture contained the terrifying power of Grand Primes. That gesture abided with the world, possessing the profound truths of the world. This was why a Grand Prime was terrifying. Their comprehension of the ways of the world had reached an extremely profound level. A casual strike from them possessed the might of the world. Boom! With that, the attack from the martial soul array was dispersed by Chang Feng Yun. Even though the attack had reached the 9th heavenly layer of chaotic prime when they worked together, which was equivalent to Chu Jian and Yu Chao, it still paled slightly if it was really compared to the 2 of them. However, Chang Feng Yun had only managed to disperse the power. There was nothing he could do about the martial soul force within the attack. The lingering martial soul force seemed to have fused with space. It was invisible to the eye and the senses of the soul. It shot into Chang Feng Yun's head like it was unstoppable. Even though Chang Feng Yun was protected by a god artifact, he was unable to stop the martial soul force. Chang Feng Yun's expression immediately changed slightly. At that moment, his attack became slightly sluggish as well. Soul-destroying technique. On the mountain soul, all of their power gathered on Yun Ziding's body. With a thought, the 4 others immediately felt their martial soul force decrease drastically. The soul-destroying technique had been used, forming an invisible sword that stabbed into Chang Feng Yun's soul in an instant. The attack this time was several times more powerful than the last. Chang Feng-yun immediately grunted. He felt like his soul was being stabbed by needles. He experienced a splitting headache. Chang Feng-yun sensed that the situation was bad. If Chu Jian attacked him at a moment like this, he would face life-threatening danger. Without any hesitation, he immediately retreated, pulling away from Chu Jian. He was ready to keep fighting after his soul had recovered. With Chang Feng-yun's departure, only Zhang Hu was left fighting Chu Jian. Without the other person, you won't be able to fight back against me at all. Killing you is a piece of cake, Chu Jian said coldly. His eyes suddenly became pitch black like two black holes in outer space. It hid terrifying energy. Zhang Hu's face changed drastically when he saw Chu Jian's eyes. He clearly knew what it was like when martial soul force was used. This was no regular attack. However, even though Zhang Hu had become vigilant, it was too late. Martial soul force was unblockable, and Chu Jian was able to use his martial soul force with a single thought. When Zhang Hu noticed his eyes, Chu Jian's martial soul force had already shot out. It would arrive in a split second. Immediately, Zhang Hu produced a grunt. He began to sway as he struggled to endure the pain from his soul. He temporarily lost sense of the world around him. Swish! At the same time, there was a flash, and Chu Jian's sword stabbed out like a bolt of lightning, piercing Zhang Hu's head. Zhang Hu had died. Chu Jian flickered his sword, directly tossing Zhang Hu's corpse onto the martial soul mountain. After that, he continued towards Chang Feng-yun. Zhang Hu is actually dead, Chang Feng-yun had gradually recovered. He stared at Zhang Hu's corpse blankly as his forehead became laced with cold sweat. God damn it. Gong Ji, Wu Lu, and the others all cursed inside. With Zhang Hu's death, they had lost another peak expert. Victory gradually grew further away from them. Luo Mantian and He Dao were extremely stern. They stared at Zhang Hu's corpse silently. Let's retreat. The gentle breeze ancestor sighed gently. At that moment, he was extremely gloomy. He stared at Zhou Zhidao, Tong Wuming, and Lian Wuji, who had not taken part, before turning around and leaving. Gong Ji, Wu Lu, and Chang Feng-yun knew that the situation right now was disadvantageous to them. They stopped fighting and retreated without any hesitation at all. Luo Mantian and He Dao glanced at each other. They gritted their teeth and could only retreat with everyone else. However, they did not return to the God's Fallen clan and the Daoist sect of emergence. Instead, they directly went to the headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance. At the same time, all the formations around the headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance were activated, unleashing their most powerful defense. The entire Four Symbols Alliance entered a state of high vigilance. Chapter 2601, A Bloodbath in the Three Organizations. The Gentle Breeze Ancestor, Gong Ji, Wu Lu, and Chang Feng-yun of the Four Symbols Alliance stood with the traitors of the Righteous Alliance, Luo Mantian and He Dao. Every single one of them were figures of legends on the cloud plane. They were people that many cultivators would not be able to see in their entire life. Any single action from them could influence the entire cloud plane. They, a total of 6 Grand Primes, represented over half of the peak experts across the entire cloud plane. They all stood sternly within the protective formations as they stared outside. There was a smear of worry that rarely ever appeared on their faces. Sigh. We're doomed now. If we don't receive any foreign reinforcements, it's impossible for our Four Symbols Alliance to survive. Gong Ji, Wu Lu, are you satisfied with this? The Gentle Breeze Ancestor let out a long sigh and said with a heavy heart. His voice was filled with blame. He had never agreed with Gong Ji and Wu Lu's actions. Now that everything had developed like this, it was basically all because of the two of them. The Gentle Breeze Ancestor said nothing about Luo Mantian and He Dao. Even though they had once been enemies, and their grievances had reached a point beyond reconciliation, their Four Symbols Alliance really needed the two of them right now. Gentle Breeze, it has already happened. There is no use bringing it up anymore. None of us knew that Jian Chen was actually a member of the martial soul lineage, and the martial soul lineage would completely match up to the rumors in strength. Their 3 chaotic primes are just too terrifying, Gong Ji said emotionlessly. She looked into the distance, staring at where the martial soul lineage resided in outer space. Fear and dread appeared from the depths of her eyes. It was not just her. In reality, all the peak experts on the cloud plane had become quite frightened by the terrifying battle prowess of the martial soul lineage. 9th heavenly layer chaotic primes could actually kill grand primes so easily, claiming the lives of 2 in such a short amount of time. This matter was just far too shocking. They would have never believed it if it had not occurred right in front of them. Young Star Lord, you've seen it for yourself as well. Our 4 Symbols Alliance is no longer their opponent with the entry of the martial soul lineage. We can only depend on you now. Gong Ji looked at the young Star Lord and pleaded. The Gentle Breeze ancestor, Chang Feng Yun, Wu Lu, He Dao, and Luo Mantian all looked at the young Star Lord. Indeed, their 4 Symbols Alliance had completely lost the upper hand in the current situation. The martial soul lineage alone had caused them such problems, and there were still Tong Wuming, Zhou Zhidao, and Lian Wuji from the Righteous Alliance. Their only hope now was the young Star Lord. Just as you had hoped, we've killed a 2nd Grand Prime. 8th Junior Brother, take the corpse. Chu Jian laughed and flicked his sword. Zheng Hu's corpse directly flew into the Martial Soul Mountain. The Martial Soul Array on the illusionary Martial Soul Mountain had stopped operating. Jian Chen caught Zheng Hu's corpse with one hand. As he sensed the terrifying energy inside, he secretly rejoiced. He had never thought that he would obtain the corpses of 2 Grand Primes so soon. The immortal devouring orchid strength would be able to increase drastically. These are their space rings. Seniors, I'll leave the space rings for you to handle. Jian Chen removed Guli and Zheng Hu's space rings and handed them over. Regular Grand Primes probably don't have anything that can interest us. You 5 better take it and see if there is anything you need in them. Han Zong, Chu Jian, and Yu Chao stepped onto the Martial Soul Mountain. They did not even look at the space rings, directly passing them to Yun Ziding, Su Qi, Bai Rufeng, and Qing Shan. All right. I won't hold back then. Yun Ziding chuckled. He accepted the space ring and checked its contents. There are quite a lot of colored divine crystals in here. I'll take some of the colored divine crystals and materials. You 4 can take the rest. Afterwards, Su Qi, Bai Rufeng, and Qing Shan all took what they needed, leaving the remainder to Jian Chen. The belongings of the 2 Grand Primes were divided among the 5 of them just like this. Jian Chen did not look at what remained. He directly stowed the 2 space rings away. Thank you for your assistance, or our Righteous Alliance would have probably been done for. The Lord of the Heavens Link Peak, Tong Wuming, Zhou Zhidao, and Lian Wuji approached the Martial Soul Mountain. They all clasped their fists. Even though the most powerful members of the Martial Soul lineage were only chaotic primes, they dared not underestimate them at all. They treated them with great caution. Suddenly, powerful pulses of energy appeared on the cloud plane, which attracted Jian Chen's attention. Jian Chen was currently in outer space, and the cloud plane was a floating piece of flat land in space. As such, he could clearly see the 5 regions. He discovered intense battles on the eastern, northern, and central regions. The terrifying shockwaves formed visible ripples, wreaking havoc there as storms. Jian Chen could tell with a single glance that the battle in the northern region was at where the God's Fallen clan stood. You're attacking the God's Fallen clan? Jian Chen asked. The light in his eyes flickered as he became eager. The God's Fallen clan, the Daoist sect of emergence, and the Heaven-quaking sect had betrayed the Righteous Alliance. We naturally will not be sparing them. Lian Wuji ground his teeth. That's right. Luo Mantian and He Dao have to pay a heavy price for their betrayal. We will hold a bloodbath in the God's Fallen clan, Heaven-quaking sect, and Daoist sect of emergence. We will destroy them completely and spare no one, Zhou Zhidao said as he brimmed with killing intent. This time, the sudden betrayal had almost doomed them all. As a result, they all hated the three traitors. Peak Lord, how are your wounds? Jian Shen looked at the Lord of the Heavens linked peak as his brows furrowed. It's not a problem right now. I've temporarily suppressed the curse. Go deal with the three clans and sects first, the Lord of the Heavens linked peak waved his hand and said rather weakly. All right then. We'll deal with the God's Fallen clan, Daoist sect of emergence, and Heaven-quaking sect first. There's no need to show mercy this time. Jian Shen immediately flew towards the northern region. He was impatient, as if he was even more eager than the Righteous Alliance in destroying the three organizations. The Daoist sect of emergence, the Heaven-quaking sect, and the God's Fallen clan are all protected by powerful formations. Our great elders are not enough to get through them. We need to personally take action. Tong Wuming looked at where the three organizations were and said to Lian Wuji and Zhou Zhidao. Afterwards, the three of them split up and went to the three organizations. At the same time, a young child sat on the roof of an inn in the imperial capital of the Blood Sun Empire. If Jian Shen were present, he would definitely recognize the child. He was the one he had met in the Myriad Bone Guild. He only seemed like an ordinary child on the surface, but his strength was unfathomable. The Nine Brilliant Star Lord probably wants to use his foster son, Tian Yao, to eliminate Jian Shen. However, he overestimates his foster son's ability far too much. Unless he uses the forces of the Star Brilliance plane or personally interferes, having his foster son eliminate Jian Shen would be a fool's dream. However, if he personally interferes, he'll get involved too much. There will naturally be more and more traces. The Nine Brilliant Star Lord probably doesn't have that courage, or once the Anata Grand Exalt peers into the heavenly secrets and learns the truth. Let alone certain death for him, even the Blood Tier Grand Exalt will be dragged into the matter for destroying the Anata Grand Exalt's fruit of ways. I really don't want to imagine just how terrifying an angered Anata Grand Exalt is. A fruit appeared in the heartless child's hand. He ate the fruit as he paid attention to the endless flow of people on the streets. He murmured, since Jian Shen is a fruit of ways, he'll die in the end. However, he can't die on the cloud plane. With that, the heartless child suddenly looked at outer space. His gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the distance and see the depths of space. Even that bird has come. The tiny cloud plane seems like it'll become livelier and livelier. The heartless child smiled gently as he got more and more interested in the whole matter. Chapter 2602, A Cunning Scheme. A meteorite hovered silently in a region of space extremely distant from the cloud plane. It seemed to have fused with the surrounding stars. An azure-robed man stood on the meteorite. He was like a ghost, standing there silently. His presence was completely concealed such that he seemed to have fused with the space there. Even if someone stood right before him, it would be very difficult for them to discover his existence. The azure-robed man was the renowned Azure Peng King in the Saints' world, as well as one of the four heavenly kings of the Lone Heaven Plane, the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance. Currently, he stood on the meteorite with his arms behind his back. His eyes were extremely piercing as he stared at the tiny speck of land floating in the distance. The land was the cloud plane. Due to the distance, the cloud plane appeared to be the size of a sesame seed in the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance's eyes. The Nine Brilliant Star Lord has already publicly announced that he's entering seclusion for good, attempting to break through to Grand Exalt. In the end, his foster son came to the cloud plane and did whatever he wanted, offending Jian Shen. It looks like the Nine Brilliant Star Lord didn't tell his foster son that the Anata Grand Exalt is still alive, which is why his foster son even did something that would provoke the heavenly palace of Bisheng. The Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance murmured as he stared at the cloud plane. Even though he was extremely distant from the cloud plane, he could clearly see everything happening there. The Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance seemed to think of something. His lips suddenly curled into a strange smile as he said to himself, I wonder how the 9 brilliant Star Lord will respond when he learns that Jian Shen has died to his foster son's hands. However, his foster son is just a little too weak. He won't be able to kill Jian Shen alone. Jian Shen has constantly been a thorn in my side as well. I'm tempted to just kill him and end it all, but there's nothing I can do because of the État Grand Exalt. However, since the 9 brilliant Star Lord's foster son has fallen out with him, I might as well go with the flow. The heavenly king of Azure Brilliance's smile became even stranger and more sinister. In the northern region of the Cloud Plain, the entire God-Fallen clan was enveloped by a powerful barrier. Energy surged within the formation, shining with blinding light. Endless energy maintained the maximum defenses of the formation. Many experts hovered in the air outside of the formation. Under the lead of 4 old men, they constantly launched powerful attacks at the formations, leading to the eruption of constant, deafening booms. The experts who attacked the God's Fallen clan all came from the Tong family. After the martial soul lineage's appearance, which allowed them to gain the upper hand, Tong Wuming, Zhou Zhidao, and Lai Yan Wuji had all given orders to destroy the God's Fallen clan, Daoist sect of emergence, and Heavenquaking sect. As a result, basically the entire Tong family had set out. Their 4 chaotic prime great elders lead a group of experts and arrived at the God's Fallen clan as quickly as they could. Meanwhile, the Heavenquaking sect and the Daoist sect of emergence faced the revenge from the Fire God clan and Cosmic sect respectively. The protective formation was personally cast down by Luo Mantian. With our ability, there's no hope in destroying the formation at all unless we drain all of its power. There are teleportation formations in the God's Fallen clan. They're probably sending away the future generation of the clan through these teleportation formations. We need to get through the formation quickly, or only an empty clan will be left. The 4 great elders from the Tong family called out. They all panicked inside. The formation was so powerful that there was nothing they could do about it. Step back, let me do it. Just as they were utterly worried, an old voice boomed out. The ancestor of the Tong family, Tong Wuming, appeared before them. It's the old patriarch. Fantastic, you've come, the 4 great elders rejoiced as they bowed. Greetings to the ancestor. The many members of the Tong family all bowed. They were in high spirits. Tong Wuming did not reply to them. He held a metal rod, and as his energy circulated, a terrifying pressure immediately appeared from the weapon. It was devastating. The metal rod was clearly a god artifact. It was at the medium quality. Tong Wuming's rod directly struck the protective formations of the God's Fallen clan. With a great rumble, the mountains in the surroundings shook, and the terrifying storm of energy flattened it all. A huge gash appeared in space. The protective formation of the God's Fallen clan flickered violently. It flashed as its energy depleted at an astonishing rate. However, the formation managed to endure Tong Wuming's strike in the end. Tong Wuming did not stop. He lifted the rod and continued to attack. Whenever the rod fell, it would unleash earth-shaking energy. Its might was extremely shocking, causing the ground to tremble violently and whole swathes of land to collapse. He used a total of 5 attacks to finally destroy the protective formation of the God's Fallen clan. The structures beneath it were now exposed. The entire God's Fallen clan had already fallen into a mess now. The members of the God's Fallen clan were all fearful as they rushed about frantically. They all charged towards the teleportation formations of the God's Fallen clan. 2 teleportation formations stood at the center square of the God's Fallen clan. They constantly flickered as the outstanding descendants of the God's Fallen clan fled. 5 people of various ages hovered in the air. They gave off surging presences. The 5 of them were chaotic primes. They were the 5 great elders of the God's Fallen clan. However, their faces were rather pale. The formations of the God's Fallen clan had been supported by the 5 of them. Now that Tong Wuming had smashed through the formations with absolute force, they were affected as well. let's go destroy the teleportation formations. A great elder of the Tong family called out from behind Tong Wuming. He immediately charged towards the teleportation formations. Don't you dare. A great elder of the God's Fallen clan called out furiously. He was grief-stricken as he already accepted death. He went up to stop him. However, at this moment, space exploded. A huge spatial crack appeared. A metal rod ripped through the sky and crashed down with devastating power. The great elder from the God's Fallen clan was unable to put up a fight at all. The metal rod struck his head, and he died on the spot. Tong Wuming had dealt that strike. He used his supreme strength as a Grand Prime to personally kill a great elder of the God's Fallen clan. The expressions of the 4 remaining great elders all hardened at this sight. Tong Wuming, you are a respected senior after all. How can you stoop so low and do something as shameful as harassing us juniors? The great elder of the God's Fallen clan, Luo Heping, called out. His expression was extremely ugly. If it were just the 4 great elders of the Tong family, they could charge their way out of here, but there was no chance for them to survive once a Grand Prime took part. In order to stop the 5 of you from escaping and to reduce the casualties of my Tong family, I can only take personal action, Tong Wuming said indifferently before swinging his metal rod towards the 4 other great elders. The difference between Chaotic Prime and Grand Prime was just too great. Coupled with the fact that none of the Chaotic Primes from the God's Fallen clan were particularly powerful, they were basically all helpless against Tong Wuming. Tong Wuming struck out again and again, showing no mercy at all. Very soon, he killed the 4 remaining great elders of the God's Fallen clan. Not a single one escaped. The 4 great elders of the Tong family hunted down the infinite primes of the God's Fallen clan that fled in the surroundings. Immediately, the whole situation became a one-sided slaughter. The Tong family hunted down the members of the God's Fallen clan everywhere. Due to the huge disparity in strength, all the clansmen of the God's Fallen clan were reduced to lambs for slaughter. Chapter 2603, reduced to food. At that moment, the God's Fallen clan could not fight back against the Tong family at all. All of their Grand Primes and Chaotic Primes were gone. On the other hand, the Tong family chose to go overkill. They used their 4 Chaotic Primes against the Infinite Primes of the God's Fallen clan and the Infinite Primes of the Tong family against the God Kings of the God's Fallen clan. As a result, basically all the members of the God's Fallen clan would face opponents a major realm of cultivation stronger than them. Naturally, they could not put up a fight. The battle that erupted in the God's Fallen clan was extremely intense. In a short amount of time, the entire clan suffered heavy casualties. The 5 dead great elders of the God's Fallen clan became objects of desires in the eyes of the experts of the Tong family, as their space rings were extremely appealing. As a result, the 4 great elders agreed to send one person just to collect the space rings. Luo Heping, you never thought you would end up like this today, right? Ha ha ha, the great elder of the Tong family, Tong Xiao, grabbed Luo Heping by the neck and lifted him high up in the sky. He laughed viciously. He and Luo Heping had already developed personal grievances prior to this. He had wanted to kill Luo Heping a very long time ago. Unfortunately, they were both high-ranking members of 2 peak clans on the Cloud Plain. In order to not worsen the relationship between the 2 clans, he could only bury this hatred. Now that Luo Heping's corpse was in his hands, he felt extremely satisfied even though the former did not die to his hands. Luo Heping, although I couldn't kill you with my own hands, I can destroy your corpse such that you die a corpseless death. Tong Xiao laughed aloud. Cold light filled his eyes. He was about to destroy Luo Heping's corpse with that. However, at this moment, a streak of light shot over. Jian Chen arrived beside Tong Xiao and clasped his fist at him. Senior, this is the corpse of a Chaotic Prime after all. Just destroying it would be quite the pity. Why don't you leave it for me to handle? Tong Xiao's face immediately sank from that. However, when he turned around and saw Jian Chen, all of his negative emotions evaporated. He immediately changed his attitude, smiling amicably and saying, "It's the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan." "All right. Since the patriarch has asked, I'll leave the corpse of that bastard Luo Heping to the patriarch." Tong Xiao paused when he reached there. After a short moment of hesitation, he passed over the space ring he had taken from Luo Heping's corpse. "Patriarch, this is Luo Heping's space ring. You should take it as well." Tong Xiao was one of the 4 chaotic prime great elders of the Tong family, basically a supreme existence in the clan. However, he did not act haughtily at all when he faced Jian Chen. Instead, he was extremely polite. All the chaotic primes on the cloud plane had witnessed the entirety of the battle that had taken place in outer space. As a result, all the chaotic primes and even some infinite primes on the cloud plane gained a deep understanding of just how great the power behind Jian Chen was. "I only want the corpse. You should keep the space ring," Jian Chen said. He did not act arrogantly at all. Instead, he behaved in an approachable manner, grabbing Luo Heping's corpse and tossing it into the water cloud hall. "My friend Jian Chen seems to be in great need of corpses. All members of the Tong family, do not destroy a single corpse. Regardless of their strength, keep the corpses of all God's fallen clan members intact," Tong Wuming said. Immediately, all the people of the Tong family became careful. When they killed their opponents, they did their best to keep their bodies in one piece. "Thank you, senior." Jian Chen rejoiced as he thanked him hurriedly. He. There's no need for you to be so polite. Our Tong family should be the ones thanking you instead. If it weren't for your martial soul lineage, our Tong family would really be done for." Tong Wuming arrived before Jian Chen and smiled like a benevolent old man. Afterwards, the 4 other chaotic prime corpses all ended up with Jian Chen. Jian Chen did not miss any of the infinite prime corpses either. They were all stored in the water cloud hall as nourishment for the immortal devouring orchid's future growth. Of course, Jian Chen did not go overboard. He only took the corpses. He left all the space rings to the Tong family. After collecting the space rings of the 5 chaotic primes from the God's Fallen clan, Tong Xiao directed his attention to the infinite primes of the God's Fallen clan. He began to slaughter them all. There were 20 to 30 infinite prime elders in the God's Fallen clan. Even though there were many of them, they died one after another, as they were hunted down by the 4 chaotic primes of the Tong family. Even the 9th heavenly layer infinite primes could not escape death. "Tong family, are you really going to ignore the friendship of so many years and kill our entire God's Fallen clan?" An 8th heavenly layer infinite prime old man bellowed out furiously. His face was filled with despair and an unwillingness to accept the situation. No one paid attention to him, nor did anyone take pity on him. Many experts had witnessed what happened in outer space. If the martial soul lineage had not suddenly appeared, the God's Fallen clan would not be the one destroyed. Instead, it would have been the Tong family. "Immortal devouring orchid, you'll have a great meal with the corpses here. Go." This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Jian Chen hovered in the air as he called for the immortal devouring orchid. The beautiful petals of the immortal devouring orchid swayed gently as it sent an excited mental pulse at Jian Chen. Afterwards, it directly landed on the ground and countless thin roots grew furiously. They became longer and longer, thicker and thicker. All of them penetrated the ground. The immortal devouring orchid just rooted down in the God's Fallen clan. Its roots submerged into the ground, spreading out in all directions rapidly. They basically covered the entire God's Fallen clan. Jian Chen could clearly tell with the senses of his soul that the immortal devouring orchid's roots were like a huge net, covering every inch of the God's Fallen clan. All the blood that had oozed into the ground was sucked up by its roots. At the same time, many of the roots poked out from the ground like sharp barbs, piercing directly into the corpses. Immediately, something strange happened. The corpses of the godhood cultivators and even cultivators below godhood from the God's Fallen clan withered at a visible rate. All the blood and energy was drained from their bodies, and they were reduced to mummies in a short while. There were just far too many corpses in the God's Fallen clan, and the number was rapidly increasing. As a result, the immortal devouring orchid did not devour them whole. It only absorbed their essence. With your current level of cultivation, you'll reach your limit very quickly if you devour the corpses of God Kings. I'll keep the corpses of God Kings for now. Go devour the corpses of overgods and those below overgod for now, Jian Shen said to the immortal devouring orchid secretly. He did not just stand by idly either. He paid close attention to the battle in Thess, Kentucky. Whenever an infinite prime from the God's Fallen clan died, he would immediately go collect his corpse. All the space rings went to the Tong family. After all, the Tong family was putting in the effort to destroy the God's Fallen clan. He had to leave some benefit for them. Chapter 2604, Nurturing with Painstaking Effort. This time, the immortal devouring orchid will definitely reach the primordial realm. Even if it doesn't devour the corpses of the God Kings, infinite primes, and chaotic primes, just the corpses of overgods and below should be enough for it to break through, thought Jian Shen as he became eager. The God's Fallen clan was a peak clan on the Cloud Plain. They had a history that spanned 1,000,000 years. After such a long period of growth, the members of the God's Fallen clan had reached the 100,000s, or even over 1,000,000 in number. Even though there were not a lot of people at God King or above, there were many below God King. There were even more at the Origin Realm and Sainthood. If all of these people were combined, they would even be equivalent to over a dozen infinite primes. For corpses of infinite primes, the immortal devouring orchid would need some time to digest them. However, the immortal devouring orchid can basically digest Sainthood, Origin Realm, and Godhood cultivators almost instantly. Although the energy within these low-level cultivators are nowhere close to infinite primes, there are a lot of them. For the immortal devouring orchid, once the quantity reaches a certain level, there will be an increase in quality, thought Jian Shen. He hovered in the sky, observing the battle in the God's Fallen clan as he paid close attention to the immortal devouring flower just in case any accidents occurred. After all, the immortal devouring orchid was only a God King. If it faced primordial realm experts, it would be doomed. This plant actually dares to devour the clansmen of our God's Fallen clan. You deserve to die. An infinite prime within the God's Fallen clan bellowed out furiously. He immediately used a God-tier battle skill, knocking away his opponent, an elder of the Tong family, before rushing over to the immortal devouring orchid. He surged with killing intent. However, as soon as he moved, an old man blocked him and struck him with terrifying energy. He was a great elder of the Tong family. In the end, before the infinite prime from the God's Fallen clan could approach the immortal devouring orchid, he was killed off. Patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan, here's the corpse. The great elder directly tossed the corpse to Jian Shen. Elder Luo Shi is dead as well. Basically all the mid and late infinite prime elders of our God's Fallen clan are dead. There's only me and a few early infinite prime elders remaining. In the battlefield elsewhere in the clan, a young man was covered in blood and vicious wounds as he battled against an elder of the Tong family who was clearly much more powerful than him. He was an infinite prime elder of the God's Fallen clan, Luo Fei. Luo Fei's eyes were currently filled with despair. The chaotic primes of the Tong family went as far as to lower themselves and personally kill the infinite primes of the God's Fallen clan. As a result, they were completely powerless. Now, all the stronger elders of the God's Fallen clan were dead. The great elders of the Tong family had directed their attention to cultivators at his level, killing them off one by one. Luo Fei knew he could not live for much longer because it would be his turn very soon. The Tong family had sealed up the God's Fallen clan such that people could only come in and not leave. It was impossible for them to flee. Go deal with the God Kings of the God's Fallen clan. Leave this person to me. A chaotic prime from the Tong family arrived before Luo Fei. He stared at Luo Fei coldly as he spoke to the elder who had been fighting him. Yes, great elder. The infinite prime of the Tong family bowed politely before immediately flying off elsewhere. Ha ha ha, Luo Fei, am actually worthy of dying to a great elder of the Tong family. Even if it's death, it's something for me to be proud about, Luo Fei said miserably. His face was covered with blood. As he laughed aloud, blood with traces of crushed organs oozed from his mouth. Humph, the great elder of the Tong family snorted coldly and stabbed his sword at Luo Fei. Stop. At this moment, a woman called out. The white-robed Tian Shuang flew over from the distance and headed right into the God's Fallen clan. She called out to the great elder who was about to kill Luo Fei. The great elder from the Tong family frowned. He suddenly looked at Tian Shuang, and his eyes were rather cold. Tian Shuang's heart tightened. She immediately reacted to the situation and said to Jian Chen, Patriarch, can you spare Luo Fei? Although Luo Fei is a member of the God's Fallen clan, his nature isn't bad. Tian Shuang, is he your friend? Jian Chen glanced at Luo Fei. He was a third heavenly layer infinite prime, an expert who did not raise any attention from Jian Chen at all. Luo Fei is my friend of many years. He also assisted me a lot in the past, said Tian Shuang. She seemed a little like she was pleading. The great elder who was about to kill Luo Fei stopped after seeing Tian Shuang plead to Jian Chen. He looked at Jian Chen from afar, as if he was waiting for Jian Chen's decision. Since he's your friend, I'll help you this time, said Jian Chen. Since Tian Shuang had already pleaded to him, he naturally would not turn her down. He immediately explained to the great elder of the Tong family. Luo Fei's talent was nothing spectacular. It was impossible for someone like that to pose any threat to Jian Chen or the Tong family. Since the patriarch has spoken, our Tong family will spare this person. The great elder chuckled and agreed extremely straightforwardly. He treated Jian Chen in a manner that was completely different from Tian Shuang. Tian Shuang, why do you save me? Chapter 2605, The Orchid Breaks Through, All Right. Thank you, Senior. Jian Chen was overjoyed. He had benefited so much from just the God's Fallen clan. If there were two other sects, Jian Chen struggled to imagine just how much energy he would collect for the immortal devouring orchid this time. I wonder if the energy in the two grand primes and the multiple chaotic primes and infinite primes will be enough for the immortal devouring orchid to reach chaotic prime in a single stroke. Once it reaches chaotic prime, it will be able to provide me with the greatest of help, thought Jian Chen. He anticipated that day very much. However, he also understood that the immortal devouring orchid would take quite some time to absorb all this energy. Even with sufficient nourishment, breaking through to chaotic prime could not be achieved in a single day. Junior brother, you pour so much effort into nurturing this plant. Is it worth it? After all, your growth is far too fast. It'll probably become completely useless to you in the end. A heavy voice rang out. Hunzong, Chu Jian, Yu Chao, and the other members of the martial soul lineage all arrived beside Jian Chen. They all studied the immortal devouring orchid. No, it's different. Jian Chen shook his head. He valued the immortal devouring orchid very much. Chu Jian studied the immortal devouring orchid for a while before saying in thought, this plant may grow extremely quickly right now, but as its strength rapidly grows, it'll become more difficult to increase. It might even take an extremely long time to reach Grand Prime. After all, the corpses of godhood cultivators are easy to find, so that's plenty of nourishment for it early on. However, the corpses of primordial realm experts are difficult to find. Where are you going to find so many of them in the future? Thank you for your concern, senior brother. I've actually already considered the problem of its future growth. However, I firmly believe that it will rise to the peak under my full support and be of great help to me, Jian Chen said firmly. Since the immortal devouring orchid could be praised by the sword spirits, how could it be ordinary? Afterwards, the people of the Tong family cleaned up the battlefield and scattered. Very soon, not a single person from the Tong family remained in the territory of the God's Fallen clan. Tong Wuming also bid farewell to Jian Chen in order to find an idea to deal with the curse on the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak. In the blink of an eye, the battle-ridden God's Fallen clan completely descended into peace. The God's Fallen clan was a mess as far as the eyes could see. All the structures were in ruins as many mountains had been flattened. Anything of value that could be taken away was removed by the people of the Tong family. However, Jian Chen remained. After the immortal devouring orchid devoured enough essence, blood and vital energies, it was close to breaking through. He remained by its side, watching over the flower. Since the Four Symbols Alliance wants to destroy the clan founded by 8th junior brother, I don't think there's a need for them to exist any longer, Su Qi said suddenly. She was an alluring woman, but she was no less ruthless than anyone else. Our martial soul lineage doesn't go looking for trouble, but that doesn't mean we're afraid of trouble. Once people come harassing us, we will obviously make them pay the price, said Yun Ziding. First senior brother, second senior brother, third senior brother, let's go destroy the Four Symbols Alliance, Qing Shan suggested as his eyes flickered with cold light. The successors of the martial soul lineage have always been as close as brothers. Whenever one was in trouble, all of them would provide assistance. As a result, whatever happened to Jian Chen was not just Jian Chen's problem. It was the entire martial soul lineage's problem. The Four Symbols Alliance really did not pose any threat to the martial soul lineage. Even after they gained Luo Mantian and He Yidao, the martial soul lineage still did not take them seriously. At this moment, a powerful pulse of energy appeared. The sudden occurrence immediately attracted the attention of the martial soul lineage. The powerful pulse of energy came from the immortal devouring orchid. It had finally broken through at that moment, reaching the primordial realm. As soon as it reached the primordial realm, the immortal devouring orchid's rate at refining energy suddenly increased. Moreover, the limit of the energy it could devour each time had increased by several folds with the breakthrough. As the immortal devouring orchid's presence rose, its energy became more and more powerful as well. Jian Chen could clearly sense the essence, blood and vital energies from the people of the God's Fallen clan vanish at an unbelievable rate, becoming energy that belonged to the immortal devouring orchid. Good. You've finally reached the primordial realm, Jian Chen smiled. The immortal devouring orchid's growth rate had taken him by surprise. At this rate, if it had sufficient nourishment, it would even surpass him. Suddenly, its huge stalk shook gently, and in the next moment, all the blood on the ground dried up. All the energy in the blood had been absorbed by the roots of the immortal devouring orchid, becoming its nourishment. After absorbing all the blood, its roots broke free from the ground. Every single one of them danced about madly in the air, and they were all either kilometers long or dozens of kilometers long. They reached for all the corpses on the ground and pulled them into its center. The center of the petals seemed to be hiding a huge mouth. As if it were larger on the inside, it did not swell up at all after sucking in all those corpses. In under a minute, the immortal devouring orchid had completely cleaned up the God's Fallen clan. Afterwards, all of its tendrils shrank, and it slowly returned to a meter in height. It remained next to Jian Chen like a regular flower, swaying gently with great attachment to Jian Chen. It looks like you're still not full. Let's go to the other two places, Jian Chen chuckled before using the laws of space and vanishing in an instant with the immortal devouring orchid. He hurried to where the heaven-quaking sect and Daoist sect of emergence were. The battles there had also ended, but Zhou Zhidao and Lian Wuji had already received a reminder from Tong Wuming, so they specially left behind some clansmen to clean up the battlefield and stow the corpses of some experts into space rings. As a result, when Jian Chen arrived at the two sects, he received many space rings. I am an elder of the cosmic sect, Kong Na. Greetings to the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan. All the corpses from the Daoist sect of emergence are in this space ring. There are 4 chaotic prime great elders, 32 regular infinite prime elders, and many other disciples below the primordial realm. I am an elder of the fire god clan, Lian Xian. Greetings to the patriarch of the Tian Yuan clan. Under the special orders of the ancestors, we've saved these corpses for the patriarch. The heaven-quaking sect had a total of 5 chaotic primes, 30 infinite primes, and the people who handed over the space rings were all infinite prime elders from the cosmic sect and fire god clan. They were very polite to Jian Chen, speaking to him in a very approachable manner. The God's Fallen clan and heaven-quaking sect had 5 chaotic primes each, while the Daoist sect of emergence had 4. This time, just the corpses of chaotic primes have amounted to 14, and there are almost 100 infinite primes. It looks like I don't have to worry about the immortal devouring orchid's growth for a very long time, thought Jian Chen. Chapter 2606. Right behind you with a flip of Jian Chen's hand, a fist-sized, blue divine hall appeared. The divine hall was the water cloud hall. With a single thought, its door slowly opened. As if an invisible force had appeared from inside, the space rings in Jian Chen's hands were all sucked in there. Immortal devouring orchid, just cultivate in the water cloud hall for the next period of time. If there are any problems, you can contact the artifact spirit of the divine hall, Jian Chen said to the immortal devouring orchid. The pretty petals of the immortal devouring orchid swayed gently, as if it was nodding at Jian Chen. After nudging Jian Chen with great attachment, it entered the water cloud hall and vanished. Jian Chen stowed away the water cloud hall. It would be up to the immortal devouring orchid now to see just what level it could reach. He did not worry about the immortal devouring orchid being unable to use space rings at all, as the immortal devouring orchid had already developed intelligence no less than humans. Aside from its innate restrictions, making it unable to assume a humanoid form and speak, it was no different from a human. It even outdid humans in certain aspects. Opening a space ring was a piece of cake for it. The immortal devouring orchid hovered in the water cloud hall. As it had only just reached the primordial realm, it was unable to conceal all of its energy, so the power and pressure of the primordial realm would radiate from it. Space rings lay quietly on the ground before it. Suddenly, the tendrils of the immortal devouring orchid began to grow. Several dozen tendrils became dozens of meters long in a split second, wrapping around the space rings. In the next moment, the space rings were all open and corpses flew out, piling up in the water cloud hall. Looking at the corpses, the immortal devouring orchid could not help but begin shaking. It was filled with excitement. Flower, Master said that you should start absorbing the weakest first. At this moment, a cold voice rang out in the hall. It came from the artifact spirit of the water cloud hall. I understand. Thank you for Master's bestowment, the immortal devouring orchid replied. Of course, it could not speak, so it communicated with mental pulses. At the same time, the ancestor of the God's Fallen clan, Luo Mantian, stood with the ancestors of the Daoist sect of emergence, Heidao, with sunken faces on a mountain in the headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance. They stared in the direction of the God's Fallen clan and Daoist sect of emergence through the most powerful formations of the Four Symbols Alliance. Killing intent filled their faces. As Grand Primes, they could observe the entire plane with a single thought. They naturally witnessed the destruction of the God's Fallen clan and the Daoist sect of emergence, but there was nothing that they could do. As a result, they just remained hidden here like cowards, watching their powerful and once glorious sect and clan that had existed for 1,000,000 years be destroyed. Tong family, Fire God clan, Cosmic sect, there will be a day when I, Luo Mantian, will make you regret your actions, Luo Mantian said through gritted teeth. It was impossible for him not to feel pained over the destruction of something he had worked on for 1,000,000 years. Even though they could rebuild it, returning to their past glory would take an extremely long time. Don't worry. The young Star Lord is on our side. We will have our revenge sooner or later. He Dao growled. TSK, I wouldn't say that you can blame others. After all, the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak almost died to your hands. Chung Fengyun's voice rang out. He was a middle-aged man in violet robes. He slowly made his way over from the distance. I'm talking about you in particular, Luo Mantian. Your dagger really was extraordinary. It's imbued with the laws of curses from a fourth heavenly layer Grand Prime at the very least. Fortunately, the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak was at the peak of the third heavenly layer, so he could hold his ground against the curse. If it were any other second heavenly layer Grand Prime, it wouldn't take them very long before they die to the curse, said Chang Feng-yun as he smiled faintly. Even though his smile was nothing special, it seemed like a sneer, a scoff in Luo Mantian and He Dao's eyes. After all, they were traitors. They had even launched a sneak attack on the Lord of the Heavens Link Peak who trusted them dearly. Their actions were despicable from a moral sense. Chang Feng-yun, you better watch your mouth. I don't mind fighting you here, Luo Mantian immediately replied coldly. This is the territory of our Four Symbols Alliance. Are you certain you want to fight me here? Chang Feng-yun chuckled. He did not take Luo Mantian seriously at all. The Righteous Alliance and the Four Symbols Alliance had opposed each other for so many years. Their grievances were already established. It was impossible for them to reconcile so easily. Even though Luo Mantian had already joined them, and they now fought on the same front, it was very difficult for them to completely get along with each other. Enough. Chang Feng-yun, it's not the time to create internal conflict. Breeze Cloud wants us to go to the Longevity Hall and discuss how we should deal with the future. Gong Ji arrived as well and stopped the argument between Chang Feng-yun and Luo Mantian. Very soon, the four remaining Grand Primes of the Four Symbols Alliance and the traitors of the Righteous Alliance gathered together. They discussed how they should face their current predicament. Gong Ji, has there been anything from the young Star Lord yet? It's impossible for us to deal with our current situation ourselves. We can only rely on the young Star Lord to send some experts from the Star Brilliance Plane, the Gentle Breeze ancestor asked with furrowed brows during the meeting. Gong Ji shook her head. I've asked the young Star Lord many times for help, for him to call over from experts from the Star Brilliance Plane, but the young Star Lord has never given me a straightforward ancestor. It seems like it's a painful subject for him. Gong Ji, Wu Lu, you two are solely responsible for the situation we're currently in, including Zheng Hu's death. Tell us what we should do now. Once the Martial Soul Lineage and Righteous Alliance attacks us, we won't be able to last for very long with our formation alone. Once the formation shatters, our Four Symbols Alliance will suffer the same fate as the God's Fallen Clan, Heaven-Quaking Sect, and Daoist Sect of Emergence. We will truly be erased from the cloud plane, Chang Feng-yun said sternly. You can't blame us for this. Who would have thought the Martial Soul Lineage would suddenly appear, and who would have known that the Martial Soul Lineage would not be afraid of the young Star Lord and openly oppose us, Gong Ji said emotionlessly. Quite a large argument happened during the meeting. As for the young Star Lord who remained in his luxurious residence, his face was completely sunken as well. He was in a horrible mood. Martial Soul Lineage. Once the training ends, I'll ask my foster father to personally take action and make you pay the price. The young Star Lord clenched his fists tightly, as he was utterly furious. The plan this time should have been perfectly flawless. Jian Chen should have been done for. However, the Martial Soul Lineage's appearance had completely reversed the situation, making him suffer a crushing defeat when he was on the verge of victory. As a result, he utterly hated the Martial Soul Lineage now. Why are you so angry, young Star Lord? At this moment, a voice rang out in the empty hall. Who is it? Come out. The young Star Lord's face sank. He looked around and failed to see anyone at all. He could not find the origins of the voice either. I'm right behind you. The Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance possessed great speed, enough for him to cross worlds. There were only a handful of experts across the entire Saints world that could match his speed. Moreover, he was a person who held on to grudges very much, someone with a very vengeful nature. As a result, the various experts of the Saints world would try their best to not provoke him, enduring him as much as they could. Even for those who completely overwhelmed the Heavenly King of Azure brilliance and strength, once they fell out and the Heavenly King fled, it was impossible for them to catch up to him. What could they do? All they would be waiting for was the endless retaliation of the Heavenly King of Azure brilliance in the future. As a result, none of the experts who had organizations attached to them really wanted to provoke the Heavenly King of Azure brilliance. On the other hand, the Star Brilliance plane ranked towards the top among the 49 planes of the Saints' world. They were far more powerful than the Cloud plane, filled with sects, clans, and experts. However, there was only his foster father, the 9 Brilliant Star Lord, who could truly take the Heavenly King of Azure brilliance lightly. At the same time, the young Star Lord had once heard from his foster father that even if he wanted to kill the Heavenly King of Azure brilliance, it would take quite the effort. In order to kill the Heavenly King of Azure brilliance, one needed to be able to catch up to him first. Although his foster father was powerful, renowned in the Saints' world and known as a supreme expert only second to Grand Exalts, he was not as great at pursuing people as experts weaker than him but had grasped the laws of space. As a result, the young Star Lord was rather fearful of the Heavenly King of Azure brilliance. He could even be described that he rather dreaded the Heavenly King. He dared to offend the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng because he believed that Exian dared not kill him. After all, the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng was not just Exian alone. She had to consider for everyone else and consider whether she could stop the 9 Brilliant Star Lord, or maybe even endure the Blood-Tier Grand Exalt's wrath. However, the Heavenly King of Azure brilliance was an unruly, fearless existence. If he really angered him, who knows what he could do? Senior Heavenly King, the Four Symbols Alliance is protected by formations now. How did you come in here? The young Star Lord asked carefully. Although the defenses of this formation is impressive, it's a piece of cake for me to destroy it, and any formation I can destroy easily cannot obstruct me. I can come in and out as I wish, the Heavenly King of Azure brilliance said like it was no big deal. I've heard many rumors and legends about Senior Heavenly King since a long time ago. Now that I look at it, Senior Heavenly King really lives up to his reputation. May I ask why Senior Heavenly King has suddenly come to find Junior? The young Star Lord clasped his fist. He seemed like a completely different person from before. I just happened to be passing by. When I heard the 9 Brilliant Star Lord's foster son was on the Cloud plane, I came in to have a look. But it seems like you've encountered some problems, said the Heavenly King of Azure brilliance. Before the young Star Lord could reply, he continued, the 9 Brilliant Star Lord is one of the few supreme experts who have reached the 9th heavenly layer in the Saints' world. If he takes another step forward, he will reach Grand Exalt and become the heavenly ways. He will become a supreme sovereign. He is someone I respect. Since you are the 9 Brilliant Star Lord's only child, I'll give you this so that you can protect yourself with it. It is also so that I can form a good tie with you early on. As the Heavenly King of Azure brilliance said that, he pointed at the empty space, and an azure feather that was only as long as a finger immediately appeared. It shone with a faint, azure light. It was quite enchanting. This is a life-bound plume. I condensed it using my vital energies and then nurtured it within me for every year. Every single life-bound plume possesses devastating power, equivalent to a full-strength attack from me. Over all these years, I've only nurtured 3 life-bound plumes. Every single one of them are extremely precious. Even my direct disciples won't receive something like that from me. For the sake of the 9 Brilliant Star Lord, I'll give you a life-bound plume so that you can protect your life with it. The 9 Brilliant Star Lord is currently in secluded cultivation. If you face danger, he won't be able to save you in time. Thank you, Senior Heavenly King. I will never forget the kindness you have shown today. The young Star Lord was overjoyed. He quickly accepted the feather carefully. As he stared at the azure feather in his hands, the light in his eyes flickered. Senior Heavenly King, may I ask if this life-bound plume can be used to deal an attack? The Heavenly King of Azure brilliance smiled mysteriously. Since it can protect you, it can obviously be used to harm people. As long as you don't come across 5th heavenly layer grand primes or stronger, they'll be heavily injured even if they survive the attack from my life-bound plume. Even against 5th heavenly layer Grand Primes, they'll struggle to deal with the life-bound plume as long as they're not like the solitary sword ancestor. Treasure it. What about below Grand Prime? The young Star Lord continued to ask. It will be certain death for those below Grand Prime. Before he had even finished talking, the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance vanished silently. He left the Four Symbols Alliance without raising anyone's attention. From the very start, none of the ancestors of the Four Symbols Alliance sensed him. Certain death for those below Grand Prime, the young Star Lord murmured. He was in great joy. The feather from the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance was like someone giving him exactly what he needed when he needed it. Jian Chen's not even a chaotic prime. It really will be at my expense if I use this feather on him. However, Senior Heavenly King said my foster father is in seclusion? That's strange. When I left the Star Brilliance plane, father wasn't in seclusion. Why did he suddenly enter secluded cultivation right after I left? I wonder how long father will remain in seclusion this time. Just when will my training on the cloud plane end? Whatever. I won't worry about it for now. The matter at hand is to make Jian Chen die as soon as possible. This feather should be enough to kill some other members of the martial soul lineage after I kill Jian Chen. The young Star Lord stowed the feather away and left. With such a powerful trump card in his hand, he became rather impatient to use it. Chapter 2608, Taking Action. Whether it be the Four Symbols Alliance, the Righteous Alliance, or even the successors of the martial soul lineage, none of them knew the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance had arrived on the cloud plane. It was as if only the young Star Lord was the only one on the cloud plane who knew. However, nothing was perfect. The child observed all of the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance's actions on the cloud plane, all the way until he left. The child was the Heartless Child from the Myriad Bone Guild. The Heartless Child remained within the imperial capital of the Blood Sun Empire the entire time. He just sat on the roof of an inn that was extremely far away from the Four Symbols Alliance. He actually gave one of his life-bound plumes away. What is that bird thinking? Does he want to kill Jian Chen using the young Star Lord? His gaze shifted away from the headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance. Now, it was directed to outer space. His gaze was extremely profound, as if the cosmos were reflected in them. Celestial bodies seemed to move through his eyes, interwoven with the laws of the world. His directly stared at the depths of the cosmos, locking onto an azure figure that traveled away with terrifying speed. The azure figure stopped extremely far away from the cloud plane and paid close attention to the cloud plane. They both concealed themselves, but the Heartless Child discovered the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance very easily, while the Heavenly King of Azure Brilliance sensed nothing. He did not even know that the Heartless Child had been paying attention to everything he did on the cloud plane, along with what he was doing right now. That bird really is rumored. He's extremely vengeful. He learnt Ming Dong's identity and learnt that the Anata Grand Exalt is still alive, yet he still did not give up on killing Jian Chen. He wants to use the young Star Lord to kill Jian Chen. However, he probably still doesn't know about Jian Chen's relationship with the Anata Grand Exalt. Jian Chen is the Grand Exalt's fruit of ways, so if he really died here, the bird won't be able to live for very long either. The Heartless Child murmured. He smiled with interest as the intrigue on his face deepened. However, we still need Jian Chen to deal with the crisis of our Myriad Bone Guild. Jian Chen can't die here. Though the measly cloud plane seems like it'll be busy. The Heartless Child was at ease. He looked at the cloud plane like he was just a spectator that was waiting for a fascinating show with great interest. In the blink of an eye, it had already been 3 days since the Heaven-Quaking Sect, Taoist Sect of Emergence, and God's Fallen Clan were destroyed. During those 3 days, all 5 regions of the cloud plane were peaceful. Whether it be the Righteous Alliance or the Martial Soul lineage, neither of them did anything to the Four Symbols Alliance. Nothing seemed to happen to the Four Symbols Alliance on the surface. the protective formations remained activated. It shone with a hazy light and possessed earth-shaking energy, hiding everything happening inside and prohibiting anyone from entering or leaving. All the experts of the cloud plane knew that this was just the calm before the storm. The astonishing change that could affect the entire cloud plane or even rewrite history was silently building up under this guise of peace. That was all because the Marshal's Soul Mountain never left. The illusionary mountain represented the Marshal's soul lineage. As long as the Marshal's Soul Mountain was present, it meant that the Marshal's soul lineage was still on the cloud plane. Finally, on the 10th day since the three peak organizations were destroyed, the peace on the cloud plane was broken. Many clansmen and disciples surged out from the Tong family, Fire God clan, and Cosmic sect. Under the lead of primordial realm experts, they all surged into divine halls that hovered in the air. Afterwards, these divine halls of various designs and quality landed in the hands of the primordial realm experts. They were taken to the southern region through teleportation formations by these primordial realm experts. Powerful formations enveloped the entire headquarters of the Four Symbols Alliance as it shone brightly. The terrifying pulses of energy made it seem impenetrable. Figures appeared outside the formation. The primordial realm experts of the Tong family, Fire God clan, and Cosmic sect all gathered together, ranging from infinite prime elders to grand prime ancestors. At that moment, the three organizations of the Righteous Alliance were basically completely mobilized. Fall into formation. Fall into formation. Fall into formation. At this moment, three people called out, and the divine halls suddenly appeared with the voices. The doors swung open, and the godhood cultivators from the three organizations poured out like floods. As soon as they emerged from the divine hall, they fell into various formations. Powerful energy surged, causing the surroundings to shine with multicolored light. It was quite the sight. This time, the three peak organizations had almost mobilized 200,000 people in total. Any of these organizations had existed for hundreds of thousands of years or maybe even 1,000,000 years. Their disciples and clansmen amounted to around 1,000,000 or even more. However, most of these clansmen were at the mortal realm, sainthood, and origin realm. There was only a very small fraction who were truly able to reach godhood. As for the people who had reached the primordial realm, there was just a handful of them. As a result, without any exaggeration, all of these cultivators were basically the elites of the three peak organizations. Even the weakest of these people had reached godhood. They've finally come. At the same time, the gentle breeze ancestor and the other grand primes hovered in the air within the protective formations of the Four Symbols Alliance. They watched everything unfold through the formation. They were stern. Luo Mantian and He Dao were among them. The two of them stared outside the formations, looking at the three figures that they had once fought alongside who stood at the front of the army. They experienced a multitude of emotions. Young Star Lord, our protective formations will be destroyed in the end. Against the combined forces of the Marshal's soul lineage and the Righteous Alliance, there's no chance of victory for us. May I ask if the young Star Lord has contacted the Star Brilliance plane? Gong Ji arrived before the young Star Lord. She was extremely stern. If there are no reinforcements, it's either giving up on the cloud plane completely or death, Wu Lu added. His heart felt heavy. Don't worry. I already have a way to deal with them, the young Star Lord said confidently. Boom! At this moment, a thunderous rumble rang out. The protective formations of the Four Symbols Alliance shone brightly as the barrier rippled like water. If someone stood outside, they would be able to see an extremely grandiose scene. A powerful beam of energy shot down from outer space. It was just like a bridge of light, piercing through the world and colliding with the formations around the Four Symbols Alliance. This huge beam of energy did not disperse after a single strike. Instead, it remained as if an endless amount of energy in outer space maintained it forever. The Marshal's soul lineage had taken action. On the illusionary Marshal's Soul Mountain in outer space, Jian Chen stood together with his 7 seniors. They stood in formation together, guiding the power of the mountain's soul to attack the formation from the distance. you're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.